That's it. We are live.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. We are
nice
back.
to talk to you all again.
Yeah, we've got special guest John Cowie with us here from the UK, a pyramid expert. And we obviously have Angel from America on today. We have Levkunfu, Angel's from America, Levkunfu UK, Patricia's the UK. Astral is an Englishman living in Denmark. So we're all on this hangout today. And John has come on to talk about the word realization. So over to you, John.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. What I want to talk about, I'll talk for about 10-15 minutes about this subject called realizationism. And basically to explain a little bit of background, what it is, what I mean by it, and how important it is to understand this particular ism. We all realize that our minds are constantly being manipulated. It can be fairly harmless. For example, TV commercials where you get maybe someone selling toothpaste telling you that if you don't use this particular brand of toothpaste, you'll have bleeding gums or your teeth will fall out. And we kind of all have a bit of fun and think, oh yes, don't particularly take that on board. But as we become more sophisticated by constantly being bombarded by these adverts, obviously they become cleverer and try to find much more subtle ways of selling you, getting into your mind for you to basically buy products. And to the point where back in the early part of last century, they started to use psychologists such as Edward Bernays, who was Freud's nephew, to start developing public relation and propaganda techniques. And one of Bernays' great successes was with the tobacco industry. Now, smoking back at that time wasn't particularly common, and so they had to try to find a way of persuading us to buy and smoke cigarettes. And this is what basically they did to get into our heads. They started, if you're a man, a male, if you smoked, you were tough. They created this tough sportsman type image. And if you're a woman, you were attractive and independent if you smoked. And these particular images were promoted by the films of the day, and of course the various studios, people like Howard Hughes, for example, they were connected to the tobacco industry. So you all know all the films, most of the films had people smoking, and you can have people like John Wayne who advertised on billboards and so on, cigarettes like say, Lucky Strike, and of course it promoted fantastic names like say Lucky Strike, so we call it Lucky Cigarettes, and there are all sorts of other very exciting names, Pension Hedges, and for the ladies, they even had a cigarette package called Debs. And so these techniques were subsequently employed by the snacks and the pharmaceutical industries to what we see today as these multi-billion pound companies, basically selling us things that we may not necessarily need. For example, snacks, we don't really need snacks between meals. Pharmaceutical companies, they will sell us if you reach a certain age of 60, you must have a statin. No, you don't. But of course, the doctors will get a bit of a backhander to sell you a statin without telling you about side effects and so on. So basically, the whole idea of what I've been talking about is to take away your personal responsibility, in other words, stop you thinking about ourselves. And again, everybody I'm probably talking to here tonight will understand this completely and know exactly what I'm saying and say, yes, I'm aware of this manipulation and I can ignore it and so on. But some methods of mind manipulation are more sinister. We're talking here about people who are deliberately creating conflicts around the world. This is where I want to focus on when I'm discussing this concept of realizationism. This is a really important subject, a really important idea which I want to discuss with you. So what's the background to realizationism? Who is actually manipulating us to go to war, to do all sorts of things that we basically don't want to see, what isn't really in our interest? Well, we all realize, or it seems to be becoming fairly commonplace, that we think or believe that the world is run by a group of elites. These are people who are among us who have developed and controlled an establishment over the centuries by by playing mainly on the fears and greed of people that become powerful, like popes and kings. And today we're talking here about politicians, media moguls, rich family dynasties, such as Vanderbilt, the Rockefellers, and so on. So these are very powerful people in the establishment that are puppets basically to the elites. So who are the elites? Well, this is where it becomes really, you have to, this is speculative. Everything I'm talking about this evening is speculation. But, and we all just basically have to be open-minded here to wonder how and where did elites come from? How did this small group of people become so powerful to dominate not just the human race through this century, but really for many, many centuries beforehand, right through basically till about 10,000 years ago. So I believe, and I believe that the extraterrestrials landed on Earth in our prehistory, I think around about 13,000 years ago. As I said, the idea can only be speculative, but there seems to be a growing acceptance. I know, Karen, you're not a believer in aliens and so on, but I think there's a growing acceptance that alien life could exist on other parts of our universe. I mean, if I talked about this subject 10, 20 years ago, I would have been thought of as a bit of a crackpot. But I think people are beginning to think, oh, well, it could be alien life. And when we look at human history over the last 10,000 years, 13,000 years, it's intriguing. And I actually wrote a book to provide quite a bit of evidence to show that there's something very unusual happened about 13 years ago, which moved our evolution from Homo sapien or Neanderthal to basically a human. And that seemed to happen in a very short space of time. Heard Angel talking earlier, having a little conversation before we went live about pyramids and so on, and how the knowledge on the planet that built the pyramids was just so incredible. And this wasn't the time of the pharaohs, this was happening before the time of the pharaohs. Okay, so we have this amazing civilization about 13,000 years ago, I believe E.T. led. As I say, just very quickly, just throw that up. It gives an idea of a book which is called Silbury Dawning, and it provides lots of ideas and proof. I want to dwell on that because this is just basically trying to explain that this always is a theory, but just giving you some substance to this idea. Civilization, amazing civilization. I think from when I listened to some of the modern thinkers, well, not modern, but 2,000 years ago, we talked about the Buddha and Confucius and so on, and Socrates. They were all thinking, they all seem to hark back to a time where there's a civilization which really revolved around loving kindness. So what happened to the civilization? Well, it's quite clear, about 10,500 years ago, there was a massive tsunami or probably a meteorite strike, which caused this massive tsunami, which basically completely destroyed the civilization to the point where we only see certain parts of it today, such as the pyramids and various other clues around the world, which I won't go into. So the flood, it's often referred to as the younger, driest global event, and you can read about it, lots of documentation and evidence to discuss this. And it's also mentioned in the Bible and various other religions. In the book, in our Bible, in the book of Genesis, the Great Flood is mentioned, and we hear that in connection with someone called Noah. So my contention is that when this disaster happened, there was potentially a group of our early extraterrestrial human ancestors who survived. Maybe Noah, perhaps, because we hear about he built this ark and so on, or in fact there's been a new translation that shows
yes, you told us about that last time, didn't you?
Yes, I think the ark may have been actually a pyramid. So let's say that some of this information was stored somewhere. So what I'm basically trying to say is that there was a small group of people who knew this amazing knowledge, and they held on to it, and they used this to progress through from that particular time as a small group, and they kept that knowledge to themselves. And it was a tremendous amount of knowledge. It's like someone knowing a magic trick, and you don't know the magic trick, so you think, well, how on earth did you do that? And you don't know anything. It's so incredible, so amazing. And obviously only when they tell you what the trick was that you think, oh, it wasn't so bad. So this particular group have held on to this information. In fact, they've kept sidetracking us. They've maybe destroyed evidence. They've done all sorts of things to stop us knowing about this amazing, highly intelligent ancient civilization that occurred about 13,000 years ago. So progressing through the centuries, they moved with this amazing knowledge, but they, as I said, they created an establishment and they created a situation, basically they were puppets, where they did what they were told, and they created this amazing power. Now, who were the elites? Well, the only clues I can have is that they may have come through the kind of Knights Templar, or the Druids, or Freemasonry. They may have come through that through the centuries. But who they are today, it's difficult to say. And we'll just again speculate that they still exist. But if they don't exist, then what they've left behind is a strong establishment, which is in its place. But if we go back to the elites, say they're still here or in the past over the centuries, what they did with the establishment that they created, they manipulated them, back to the magic word manipulation, by the power of fear and the power of greed. And this has become common words that we're hearing today. And this is part of understanding this term, realizationism. So they manipulated these people, and of course, if they didn't actually do what they were told, then they could be discredited, and all sorts of things could happen to them, to the point where they could even been very many wise men over the centuries that have maybe contradicted the elite stroke establishment to their huge regret, in terms of probably being destroyed, or the credibility completely destroyed. I'll come on to that moment. So here we have a situation where knowledge was power, and they had this group of elites had this amazing knowledge running through for about last 10,500 years up until the present time. Now, what's intriguing about the present time is that also, by the way, as I mentioned, I believe the human race was born at this time, back 13,000 years ago, through experiments with ET, with Homo sapiens, maybe through breeding or just through actually genetic manipulation. So we are basically half Homo sapien, half ET, which means we're all very, very clever. We've got this knowledge inside our unconscious memory. This is a memory inside us that...
Yeah, that's a word you keep saying, isn't it? You keep saying that word on all the hangouts, how clever we are.
Absolutely, and that's really important to hang on to. And I think in a way the elites kind of know this, but particularly over the many centuries that's gone past, there's been a lot of interbreeding going on, and I think it's even helped the gene pool, making us all even cleverer. So if there've been any elite, very wise people at the top, they've kind of interbred with others through the centuries. So we're pretty well all a lot cleverer than we think. We all have amazing knowledge in, as I say, our unconscious memory. Now, our unconscious memory is a bit like the Microsoft operating system. You can't very easily get at it unless you have some kind of traumatic experience or some kind of hiccup in the embryo as it's developing in the womb. So you find people are born with autism and so on, that they can do remarkable things because their brain has got access to bits of information that we normally can't get hold of. Well, having said that, during our lifetime, we can sometimes by bereavement or by drug taking or by fasting or whatever, we can sometimes get into this particular area of memory, this unconscious memory. I won't dwell on too long on that for the moment. I just want to be aware that this unconscious memory. Now, a layer above that is the subconscious memory. That's obviously, we have our conscious memory. I'm talking to you now, the here and now. That's our conscious memory. As soon as I finish that sentence, it's gone into your subconscious memory. So our conversation this evening will reside in your subconscious memory, and when you first go to sleep tonight, it will be juggled around in your memory during the sleep process in your subconscious memory. So the elites know all about this, and so they're able to use these different techniques, apply these different techniques over the centuries to manipulate us into manipulate the establishment, who in turn use similar techniques to manipulate the general population. So you're getting into some exciting areas now where, coming back to the idea of realizationism, we're beginning to realize this, and we're beginning to see what's going on. And you kind of notice it when you look at people they want to discredit. Because the other thing we also have, we have a collective subconscious memory. We all kind of link together. And And when you get something like the Beatles, we all got excited. Oh, the Beatles were great. But then you see the establishment where, oh, they're drug takers and they're this and that and so on. So we're trying to put this off. But of course, our general subconscious memory, collective subconscious memory meant that we were all kind of, oh, this is good. This is kind of a little bit anti-establishment. Same thing happened with someone like Eric von Daniken when he first talked about this amazing idea with ET and the pyramids and so on. They did everything they could possibly do to discredit him, and they continued to do that. And they did that with Graham Hancock and other people who wrote these books about ET or ancient civilizations. It's a common thing. Get up to the present day, the Scottish independence vote. That was all going to go pretty well. Scotland wanted independence. That looked to be at one point the percentage was definitely in favour of voting independence. Whether doesn't matter what I think or what anyone else thinks, that was the kind of feeling was going to happen. But then Project Fear was kicked in, Project Greed kicked in, and the ordinary person started to panic, think, oh, if we leave, we vote independence, we're going to, all the banks are going to leave, all the businesses are going to leave, and so on. So when the vote came through that the Scotland independence vote was lost, I think David Cameron and his cronies thought, oh, this is great, we can go for Brexit now. Project Fear works, Project Greed works, Project discredit people who are on the opposite side, that all works. But no, realizationism kicked in, and we began to realize that things are not quite right, and this gave them a big shock when we actually voted to leave Europe. But the intriguing thing about realizationism, or about the elites and establishment, is look how hard they are trying to overcome our vote, try to change the way we want to the way we want to go, but the establishment elites want to change it. And the other classic of the day is Donald Trump. Whatever you think of him or whatever, I've never seen so much discriminate anything that that can find, anything they can find to discredit him and so on. They're trying everything they can to basically get rid of him, because he's basically anti-establishment figure, and he's actually doing what he wants to do, really, maybe probably for the common good. This is the feeling that you get, because at the moment the establishment elites, I feel they've gone too far. The rich are just getting richer and richer, the poor are getting poorer and poorer, and there's just a lack of direction, really, in the world. And I think people are now, because of their greed, I think, and because of their maybe potential stupidity, I have to be careful here, because I don't think elites are stupid, but let's just leave that for a moment. But I think we're beginning to realize that there's something really strange going on in the world with
it doesn't feel very good, does it?
No. So it's this kind of just this sort of it's difficult. It's trying to, just looking for something that I was going to pick up on. Is the other thing that the elites were good at, and the establishment were good at, was creating labels. This is why it's important to give this kind of idea that I have, this realizationism, a label, because then people can start to discuss it, to talk about it, and give it a good label. It's a positive label, positive message. In the past, the elites would give themselves really, really nice labels like king and monarch and politicians, archaeologists, and so on. Anybody that they didn't disagreed with, they were like witches or heretics or cowards or crackpots or new age or conscientious objectors and whatever. So you can see how easy it is to create a label, which you just need to listen to that word, and straight away you get that sort of negative impression or positive impression of what that label means. So it's important to give ourselves a label and explain what it is, so that we can actually use it as a focal point, as a discussion point. Now, another thing we have to watch out for is the internet. It's a very powerful tool, and I think it's a very powerful way of promoting this idea of realizationism. But is Facebook the first step in trying to shut this whole thing down? But they're making it sound like making it like it's our idea. This is typical of how elites think. Say, well, it's Facebook. No, you don't really like Facebook anymore because it does this and it does that, and it's really promoting all sorts of things. And so they always seem to make it look like it's our idea or it's our fault when they're creating this kind of manipulation of our minds, when they're getting into our heads to do things or not do things. So the win for Brexit and Trump, I think, if that continues to develop, I think that'll be a big promotional tool for this. No, I think realizationism will begin to gain momentum as people begin to realize this manipulation has been going on, and trying to stop us basically thinking for ourselves. Now, as I said before, I think it's important to realize they're all waking up to the idea, really, that we've all inherited an amazing transgenerational memory gene. I think kind of mentioned this before. This is going back away, as I said, back to the time when the first ET Homo sapiens offspring appeared. So we've got this amazing knowledge, and it's and so we're all very clever, and we all have this amazing knowledge hidden in our unconscious memory. There's one thing I just wanted to look at, I think, before I get into open discussion, which I forgot what but that's fine. It was just trying to say, really, that there's a good example. I think it was Viktor Frankl. I think it was someone. He was a Jewish person in the Second World War who was in one of the Auschwitz, one of the concentration camps, and he was able to survive by the fact that he said, "Well, you can take everything away from me, but you can't take away what's in my mind, my own self." And this is what we've got to get a hold of. We've got our own. You can't touch our own. What's inside our own heads, so they can tell you to stop. This is the other thing of the day. Where did political correctness come from? Again, this is potentially a thing drawn up by the elite stroke establishment, because we find that we went through, for example, if you're in Britain and so on, you went through 2 world wars to fight for your freedom, and now with political correctness, sometimes you've got to be very careful what you can say. So our freedom is slowly being eroded, and what's that all about? And where's this coming from? Another last thing I would say about I say we're all very kind. We are kind. Humans are kind. I've come across around the world where you find often the poorest people are the kindest people, and they say that about charities. They often find that the poor of the rich countries basically giving money to the rich of the rich people in the poor countries, and that's again down to basically elite establishment sort of getting involved. And I often wonder, why do we need politicians? What do we need politicians for? And that's probably another fairly lengthy particular discussion or debate. Anyway.
Yeah, when you get this far, then you realise that you don't need governments when they've been feeding us all this stuff for so long.
That's right. I think, yeah, it's. I had a piece of paper with something I wanted to mention on, but basically, yeah, it's.
I mean, I think the really crazy thing is that a lot of us understand this through this thing about space. You know, when they have to make us believe in something that isn't real at all. Mm-hmm. And then to me, that takes your freedom away, because it's making you believe reality that doesn't exist when we just want the reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you know what's really sad, John? There was a convex map that came out last week. And yet again, it's just an absolute load of rubbish. Not even on that can that be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But what they've done is they've made money out of fear. So that's why you're always going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want us to have our own mind. And the whole point is that everything they're doing is damming us down. And when you look at it on the really Negative side, we're just living in an open air prison.
Mm. I couldn't agree. Absolutely, you're saying the words just exactly right, and this is why we have to basically realize what's going on, and we have to look up. We have to be take personal responsibility for ourselves. And
John
yeah.
will recognize this,
Sorry.
but we have been taught to love our servitude.
Yeah.
Edward Bernays said that. You know, we just need to learn to love our servitude.
All right.
We'll learn to love it.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing? It is really nice to find someone, without sounding rude, because you are just a little bit older than me, but not many people your age. I mean, I tried to tell my parents at the weekend. My mum just looked at me and said, absolutely no way. I only said one sentence. So, you know, she's in her early 80s.
Right.
And that generation up is the generations that have been really hit with all this. But I think the fear thing, I mean, look what they've told us about the 1920s and 30s. Depression, repression, it's just everything. Wars. It's always, everybody must have just been living in fear the whole time.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it's like this indoctrination, you know. I mean, it sits deep in so many people, and they just can't break free of it, regardless of what status in life they have or, you know, had. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of that, it doesn't matter. When you can see it, you can see it. It's almost like those 3D patterns. Some people can struggle to see them, you know. I mean, they're there for all to see. It's just a matter of fine-tuning the focus to see it, you know. Yeah, it's just like that, isn't it, really?
Yes, as I say, we've all said we'll have our experience. It's just to basically try to put a label around this, calling it realizationism. We're beginning to realize what's going on, and basically to start, you know, questioning things and start to think, well, you know, why, you know, for example, if I owe you £50 and I see you coming towards me down the street and I decide to duck into a shop so as I avoid you or evade you, what's the difference between the word avoid and evade? There's no difference. You put tax in front of it, tax avoidance, tax evasion. You know, you get, for us, the common people, you get fined if you don't pay your taxes, but for the rich, that's okay. It's okay to evade paying tax because that's illegal. It's actually an illegal situation where they've trumped this up, they've set this up to so that they don't have to give so much of their money in taxes. And
do you know what we've got happening now, John? In about, I don't know, in a few weeks' time, we've got a local election. And in reality, although it's a really big thing to do, what we need to do is to vote, but do a no vote. And the more if everybody was no voting, it's the only way to try and get these people out peacefully, is everybody does a no vote and doesn't vote for these people. Just it's a no vote.
Well, the thing is, I tried to do this many years ago. I tried to ask the politicians to write on one of the boxes, and all the slips, all the voting slips, pointless, a box with pointless in it. So if you tick that box, it would be recognised. Because many people didn't vote because there's no way to vote. Yeah, they vote for the different candidates, but there's nowhere on that voting form you can express your negative feeling or a feeling of they think this is pointless. And if there was a box with pointless, they all ticked it, as you're suggesting, then there'd be a huge percentage that you see the different numbers coming in. Oh, so-and-so is won by 3,000 votes. But then if you look at the pointless votes, you probably find there's about 10,000 pointless votes. And that would maybe shake up, but they wouldn't do that because that would actually shake up the establishment and shake up the political system.
John, can I... Part of the bit with Edward Bernays pointed out is the whole controlling the narrative and the false dichotomy, the false-sided choices. And that's kind of what the whole voting thing is you have to vote for something on this list. It's like when you go to your favorite restaurant, okay? I'm hungry. Their solution is everything on the menu. Well, tacos aren't on the menu. Well, you're hungry, here it is, something on the menu. There isn't really the option on there, although there really is, to say, I'll have water, please. You know, just water. When we leave, I'm going to stop at Burger King on the way home and get myself a water. It's just, they don't have that option because it's the false dichotomy. You know, you don't ask your kids, where do you want to go to eat? You say, do you want to go here, here, or here? Mm-hmm. You choose, but I've already made a selection. You're going to choose one of the selections I've already made. You know, it's how to control the narrative, and it's like your Brexit. We want out. Okay, we'll get out. In 2 years, we'll be completely out. It's almost 2 years. Well, okay, how about, it's going to be a little bit longer. We're working to get out, but, but you're signing all these other deals still. Yeah, but that's because we're not completely out yet. They're still controlling the narrative, but you're right. They don't really want a pointless option because that's really would wake people up. Wait, there's another choice? It doesn't have to be somebody on this list. We can actually, here we have the fill-in things, and Mickey Mouse always gets like 10% or something. But the whole idea is to control the narrative, and more so than ever, we have blackboxvoting.org or something like that with the electronic votes. They control not only the narrative but the percentage as well. So it's the false voting image that you think you have a choice. They've already selected.
Well. That's right.
And
telling us we've got democracy. What a lie.
Trump was the textbook example of the Trump card that so many people in this country said, no, we really want Trump, that no matter how much they fudged it, no matter how much, you can take that to the bank, and there's no way, he really had a overflow. Everyone said, no, we really don't want crooked Hillary in court as our president. So, but even there, they still kind of controlled the narrative. They, even with him, they say, well, you can do this and this. No, I want to do that. No, you can do this and this. They're still controlling the narrative. It is the elite that are the people in position of power, and really it goes back to who are the money changers, because now who controls the money really controls everything. And in my country, it was supposed to be us that printed our own currency, but instead we have the Federal Reserve doing it for us, in which we thank them by paying income tax. It's because we love them, and it's instead of us printing our own money, we let them do it for us. And anyone who objects to that gets shot in the head. But that's a whole nother story.
You put it very concisely, yes, very succinctly.
But it has always been, and if you understand, if you've Edward Bernays' book is on PDF, you can find it. If you understand what you're up against, it makes it easier to see it at play when it's right in front of you, and the commercials on TV and all that stuff. It's all. They also play the out of sight, out of mind. They'll take certain keywords out. That's part of the whole them controlling things. And have you ever heard? It's really a good thing. If I Were the Devil by the guy says the rest of the story. I forget his name right now. It'll come to me, but it's a really good thing where he talks about how to break up the family, bring in homosexuality, take religion out of it. He basically it's a divide and conquer strategy to basically turn everyone into the movie A Brave New World. And it's even going that way with the whole genetics bit, because anyone they can convince, if you ask a kid, hey, do you want to be Superman? Yeah, I want to be Superman. All right. You're a girl. That means we have to do this and this and this.
Yeah. Do you see why it's somehow important that we just somehow need another option on the voting forms? Because every time this is what anybody that comes on and talks about the death certificate, not the birth, we don't get a birth certificate, we get a death certificate. They all say it's because we've actually agreed to it. We keep voting them in, so we keep agreeing to it. I don't know what the solution is exactly. I'm going to ask on vote day, how do I do a no vote? I'm going to ask them, is it actually putting a cross through 3 of them? I'm going to ask for a no vote on the day. I'm definitely not voting for them anymore. I used to vote for just one party. I ain't doing it again.
You see, this is it, Karen. This is you've got to start somewhere, and this is where I go back to this idea of realizationism, is that the more people who realize what's going on, then the more, for example, there's a bank, say, let's take Barclays Bank. I think, with what went on in the past with the crash and so on, what they did and the money they ran off with and so on, if somehow through our idea of this realizationism or through some kind of collective unconscious memory, we all decided, let's take our money out of Barclays Bank, all did it pretty well the same week, then that would be a great thing, because then the bank would collapse. But we don't have that control at the moment, because we're deliberately, again, manipulated individually. We're kept away from basically getting together to get that sort of thing done. And I think this is why I think it'd be interesting to see how the internet plays, because that is a great tool for expanding these kind of ideas. But yeah, it's how do you? I think probably at individual level, kind of you just suggested, or you just said, at an individual level, you have to think for yourselves and do what you want to do, not what anybody else wants you to do, but what you want to do. And if you don't want to vote, or you don't want to do whatever, then you just go ahead and do it. You can do that as an individual. And the more of us who think like that, then the more of us who start thinking like that, then the better it will become, because we start to just think for ourselves, and hopefully that will start to expand and develop into the population at large.
Well, it's the only way I can think forward right now, because I just, I used to watch Question Time. I used to be involved. I used to be quite like, I wanted to be a counsellor, because I wanted to help people. But you know what? There's no point, because the law is always protecting the other person. So in front of you, the law protects me. And for me, the law protects you. The law isn't ours. You can never help anybody. I actually thought politicians wanted a bit of a fight, because people weren't getting a good deal, or they were doing this on behalf of the people. And somewhere, because when I was younger, that's what it looked like they were sort of doing, even if they didn't, well, I don't know, we didn't get anywhere. Maybe we were a poorer country then. I don't know. But nowadays, it's not about helping the people at all. There's no need for that. Do you know what it is? I'll tell you what some of it is. They used to say that the local councils never had enough power. But now what it means is you can't go to your MP in the UK for anything. You can't go for money. You can't go for education. You can't go for medical. You can't go to your MP for anything. You have to go to the council or an ombudsman. There's no way they want to help you at all. So what is the point of them being there? They must just like the Houses of Parliament and the cups of tea and the here. Well,
this is kind of just what I'm saying. Why do we need politicians? And because it's worse than that. What you're saying is, say for example, you're obviously very keen to help get into public life and so on. But if you were an MP and you were in the House of Commons at the moment, you'd be going there with this wonderful ideas: how I'm going to help my fellow man, woman, what I'm going to do. But as soon as you get in there, you're blocked. In every corner, you try to do things. It's so antiquated. It's so riddled with, you can't do this. So this huge, there are a number of hundreds of MPs have gone into Parliament with these wonderful ideas, how they're going to help their constituents, how they're going to do things, but they can't do it because the Parliament, again, back to the establishment elites, won't allow them to do things. So this whole idea of democracy and MPs up and doing things, it's just a waste of time. I can't think of anything which MPs done.
It's really sad for everything that we thought we were, and even the bit where they've put, your grandfather fought for this country, like this pride thing that we've got, and it is all rubbish.
Yeah.
It's all part of the.
Well, we fought. I lost uncles in the Second World War, and if I went to a doctor appointment now, I may have to wait about 16, 17 days for a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
And if I went to go down to Bradford even to get a train.
Talking about our housing, the housing's on its feet. Not talking about, I mean, I did an ombudsman case, right? They made me wait 4 years, and then they said they couldn't help me. And it made me realise that this whole ombudsman, the government body, was being paid to do nothing. Our housing is on its knees. You know, I had a friend that was desperate to move, right? She was on one of the categories to get her out of there, to get her somewhere else. It took her 8 months, and the police were helping.
Yeah. But this is how Parliament works. They work with, back again, Project Fear, Project Greed. So if the MPs don't do what they're told, many of the MPs, ex-public school boys, they've got something on them. They don't vote the way they're told to vote by the whips, then they'll be exposed for some misdemeanor they did when they were at public school or something like that. So it's nothing to do with democracy or helping their constituents and so on. It's all run on fear. It's all run on fear and greed. We see the MPs getting their backhanders, getting their money. As I say, everybody has a price, and I think this is what's happened. This kind of our society, especially at the top end, is just rife with so much corruption going on that it's it's just crazy, really. And I
suppose we can't even talk about a big section at the moment because channels have been deleted for it. But slowly, even, lots of people came to YouTube because they thought it was the one place that thought that you'd be able to find some of the truth. And even that's being blocked right now. And I was watching a video today that, Facebook are selling all our stuff. It's quite sinister what Facebook have been doing. I just don't even know if I can put it into words because don't you? Because you've looked into it. It's like the web is so big of lies. There's not even one thing that's really the truth. No. And all they've done is made sure that they've changed the past constantly so we cannot get back to this bit you're talking about of where these people who built the pyramids are. I mean, when you work out how amazing these things were, it's just incredible. It's like we're living in a film. Yeah,
this is where I keep coming back to this realizationism thing. Is that what the elites have miscalculated is we're all very clever. We've all got this amazing knowledge in our brains.
Yeah, but we've woken up.
And as I'm saying, we need to waken up to realize that this is happening, and to realize what's happening, because I think somewhere in amongst all our knowledge, our individual knowledge, we could piece things together without having the stuff that's been stolen and destroyed or hidden in the Vatican or whatever to prove that there was an ancient civilization back in before Egypt, and maybe led by E.T. I mean, if you look at the Jesus story in the Bible, I mean, we're talking earlier about Bernays with the project to sell tobacco and so on. There was a similar thing went on 400 years after the death of Jesus, where they come up with this idea: let's have somebody let's have the Son of God, because God was mentioned in the First Testament in Genesis, so we know there's a God, was a Son of God, when there's a virgin birth, resurrection and crucifixion, and they built up this great big idea called religion. And although you would say to me, well, look, John, what you're saying about E.T. and so on, it's all speculation. It's all, you can't really believe it because you can't prove it. But you can't really prove religion. You can't categorically say that what's in the Bible is true, because it was all written 400 years after the death of this particular character called, I believe he did exist, someone did exist, or at that time maybe quite a few people, similar people, who had these great ideas. And I mean, you look at...
yeah, we also know that the Bible's been manipulated since.
Of course it has. And to the point, if you look at it, it's all down with Project Fear, Project Greed, all the magic words I keep using, but you find that the church, particularly the Catholic Church, paid huge fortunes, and because the other thing they brought in, which was clever, it's the idea of heaven and hell. And if you didn't give them money after your deathbed, you'd go to hell and so on. So they had all this clever. So they manipulated the brains of even some fairly wealthy people to say, well, if you want to get, you didn't lead a particularly good life, and but if you give us some of your wealth, we'll make sure you go to heaven. So it's it's quite scary when you look at it. But again, it's a similar idea to Bernays talking to us about, well, if you smoke cigarettes, you're really, hard, tough, and so on. It's a similar idea it's a similar kind of big marketing exercise that was produced, 2,000 years ago, and again, we look at the numbers of people going to the church. Again, back to the realizationism idea. People are seeing through it, beginning to realize that it's just all nonsense.
I can't get past that. It's just like the children's story, the emperor clothing one.
Yeah.
When he's naked and he's trying to convince everybody, and and then a child stands up, doesn't it, and goes, "He's naked," because they're all afraid to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
we've woken up.
Yeah.
And you can't go back.
Yeah. Well, this is where we need to be. I think we've had creationism, we've had Darwinism, and I think it's time for a new ism, and I think it's realizationism. We have to move on from this idea that creationism, that the God made us in a weak idea, and then we moved into Darwinism, which was more scientific explanation about
you have no power over me.
And then the intelligent design was basically the Old Testament, but brought up into a scientific mode, and we have nature nurture ideas.
We have John Cowieism this evening.
What was that?
I say we have John Cowieism this evening.
No. I'm sorry, but I'll stop in a minute and let you guys get on.
No, you're good. You're good. I love hearing you, man. It's nice to hear, from a dare I say, an elderly gentleman. You're older than me anyway, so yeah.
a lot older.
It's a good attitude as well. It's not stagnant in that sense. It's still valid. Everyone needs to know. We do need to wake up and be aware and take notice of things and see what's going on in our surroundings.
That's brilliant. Absolutely right. Just summarize what I've just been talking about, really. Yeah. Because it doesn't do us any good by listening to the establishment, to the elites, because you end up with someone that's 20 stone because we've listened to all the snack adverts, or we've got cancer because we listened to all the cigarette adverts, or the elites establishment. They don't bother about you, just how much they can sell you, how much they can give you.
Nothing nice for us, is there really? Nothing, not even the truth, nothing.
No. There's no caring, there's no. And yet, I firmly believe in. If you get into the readings of Socrates and Confucius and the Buddha and that, because I think they probably had access to information. They had access to information that's probably long since been destroyed. I think highlighting that this civilization, pre-Egyptian civilization, was developed on a kind of love and kindness basis, and because they all preach about trying to get back to a society of loving kindness and being kind to each other and looking after each other. And as I said earlier in the talk, if you look at the amount of money we give to charities and the amount of things we do, it just shows you just how the basic character of the human is a kind character. It's only when you get in amongst these bloody establishment and politicians and these big egotistical maniacs that just let us get on and help each other.
Yeah.
We may never have even been there. I've actually wondered whether the time is now for the change, and maybe it's where we need to go and know we need to go now. Maybe it's never been there before. We just, it's just a feeling you get. But, to hide so much of our history.
That's what I'm saying.
Lying.
It's been, people have tried to explain it before, but they've been cut off. I mean, there've been people wiser than me, wiser than you, and over the centuries who've spotted these things and said these things. But of course, back in those days, they'd be burnt as heretics, or they'd be some way they'd be taken out because they just didn't want that information to be told. I mean, Newton had a lot of secrets going on that you would never hear about. Some of the guys that are listening to our conversation now will be able to probably give you a lot more about Newton's ideas, some of his amazing ideas. Tesla had amazing ideas that have kind of been hidden and taken away about stuff that, again, Angel was talking about the pyramids, some of the technology that was already here that he was into. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that's been developed and ideas that we have, but we haven't had the busy computers and the opportunity to I say, get to this stage of which I say calling realizationism, where we can start to realize what we've just been talking about and try to move it forward and again move it forward in a positive way for mankind. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a mess not very long from now. We're going to be in a mess unless we start to I mean,
I think we're already there.
Say one last thing. Whatever you say about Donald Trump, when he first became president, you probably hear he was trying to make inroads with the Russians. And again, back to I talk about our unconscious memory. The Americans have been taught for this generation, previous generations, that Russians are the enemy. And this is another thing that the elites will always do. You'll always have a flag, a country, a monarch, king or queen, and so on. But also another important thing is you must have an enemy, and the elites will always find an enemy. At the moment, it's Russia, and it was interesting.
Do you know why it's got to be Russia? It's got to be Russia because they've got to keep America and Russia as far apart as possible, and always show you, even if nobody even notices when they're looking at their ball, and then they lay the flat map out. America's one side, Russia's the other. Where on a ball, Alaska, which is run by America, is only so many miles away from the other side of Russia. They have to keep them apart, but they're all in on it together. They're all in on it together. Anybody that's got harp, they've all got harp. They all use it and play games with us.
Well, I mean, you had the situation just recently down in Salisbury with the Novichok virus, and of course, very easy things to say. Well, all the Russians in London, just basically, the rich oligarchs and so on, start to tax them heavily, or kick them out of London. But they won't do that because they're all part of the establishment. Just as you've said, they're all in it together.
Yeah.
So they make the noises, but they won't actually do anything.
Patricia and Lev haven't said anything so far this evening. Patricia or Lev, do you want to say anything? Because they're a bit quieter people.
Hello.
Lev?
Hello. Yeah, like you said, we cigarettes and stuff. Oh, they play on your ego and stuff, don't they? It's like in you've got men's magazines and women's magazines, and they kind of like tailor your life for you, don't they? Every side of your emotions and stuff, kind of thing, whether it's your ego or whatever else and stuff. And then you got it like in music industry as well. Like you got music, and they're all like walking around and singing like they're the only thing that matters and stuff like. And then people idolize them and they want to be like them and stuff like that. And then that makes them only think about themselves, doesn't it? Instead of the big objective about, what they're doing. You know what I mean? What the people at the other side are doing, kind of thing. Not what's going on in your own lives and stuff like that. So then
they're only here to make it as confusing as they can, though, aren't they, Lev?
Yeah. And then they're trying.
Can I tell you something? Just on your my daughter, we were coming back from this wedding the other day, and this lady hit my daughter's car, and I think she's written the car off. But actually, the insurance company were more grief because you had to go here for this, here for this, here for this, here for this. No one was responsible for that. And then when you eventually did get through, they said, "Oh, we're closed for the weekend." And this is what they love doing. They're just making it almost impossible. No one takes responsibility for anything. It's so fragmented in all these businesses. You're not supposed to get to the end. You're supposed to give up.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lev, carry on.
Yeah, I think it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you said, with doctors, or if you have to go to the job centre, or anything where there's a kind of service kind of thing, but it's not a service exactly. They don't treat you like they used to treat you,
Sorry, can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
I've got a bit of a cough going in. Sorry. Somebody said it's almost as if we treat money as a god, and if you think about it, we do. You know, we worship this fucking paper, man. Sorry to say.
Yeah, money is the medium, isn't it? Not the people. It should be the people that are the medium.
But that money is as, you know, it's well, on the dollar it says, "In God we trust," you know, written on it. I mean, wow, yeah, it's I can't remember who said it, but you know, it made me think, and I thought, yeah, it's actually right that, you know, we do treat money as a god because we worship it, you know, we use it, and if you've got lots of it, it's great for you, and if you've got none of it, you know, I mean, all right, you can still be a decent person, but as the saying goes, I would rather, you know, cry in a Jaguar than cry on a bus, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's money. It's what we worship, isn't it? It's become our god, in a sense.
If you give very little money, you can suffer quite a lot as well, can't you? You have the homeless, anybody in poverty, struggling for food and all them kind of things.
Yeah, and to think that, you know, such a small percentage of the population of Earth, that they have so much money that there could be nobody wanting anything, you know, that there is that much for everyone. There would be an abundance for everybody, but yet because of greed or because of whatever, you know, their control, wanting the power, they sit at the top there, and we all carry on working our little asses off. You know, and our little offspring do exactly the same thing. It continues ad infinitum. Keep going. Sorry to say, that cycle needs to be interrupted somehow. And,
exactly. Yeah.
And changed.
I just say that Patricia wanted to say something.
Mm.
Patricia?
Yeah, it's more of an observation, you know, saying about, it was probably about an hour ago, a bit less than that, sorry, about the elite. It just an observation to me that they're playing a world game of battleships, but instead of the ships, they're using countries to just fight against one another. And always, like somebody said, we've always got to have an enemy. We've always got to have someone we hate. And they're giving us reasons to hate other things. And also, the elite, who actually makes them the elite? Is it us that makes them? Because we see these, they have the power, rather than it's us that should have the power. We do have the power, but we sort of give it to them because they've got money. And it ties in with Astral saying about money. It's, you know, it's that scenario, isn't it? Which came first, chicken and egg? Do we give them the power because we haven't got the money behind us? You know, but we have power. Sorry, go on, John.
No, sorry, that's a very, very, very interesting. You know, we have the power because of our number, but what they have, what elites had, it wasn't money, it's knowledge. They have amazing knowledge. They can actually see into the future because they could see what was happening back in this early civilization. See how wonderful it was, how amazing it was, how technologically advanced it was, how clever they were, and so on. They had all this knowledge, which it's been fed through by this group. I'm calling them elites, through the century. So that's been going on for a few thousand years. This knowledge has been heading through, but it's been kept closely guarded amongst themselves. And it's a bit, as I said, tried to say a bit earlier, that you can see somebody doing an amazing magic trick and you're completely amazed. You think, well, how on earth did they know that? Because knowledge is power. You think that's wonderful. It's only when you know the trick, how the trick works, you think, oh, is that all? Is that it? But we're always kept away from the knowledge. For example, the knowledge that we actually came probably from this early civilization, which they will never talk about. I've never heard anybody talk about the possibilities of an ET-led civilization pre the Egyptian pharaoh, the Egyptian civilization, which they believe built the pyramids. They didn't. I'm convinced they didn't. And again, science is beginning to date things, and we're beginning to find that a lot of these places are being dated a lot older. I mean, I discovered this when I had which I talked to Karen and her team about a little while ago. We talked about Silbury Hill. We found things in Silbury Hill which was dating it to more than 10,000 years old, whereas the establishment will tell you, no, it's only 4,500 years old, not that old. And it's the same thing about the pyramids. They'd say the pyramids are 4,500 years old. They're way much older, probably, and you can almost see how much older they are just common sense tells you that they've got to be older than 4,000 years just for the wear and tear on the particular pyramid. So to answer your question, sorry, just simply to set the question about the elites, because they've always had this knowledge, it's been handed down to them. Knowledge is power, so they've kept a grip on the rest of us because they've had basically this knowledge. So we can't get at them, we can't get at the situation, because wherever they are, whether they're living, wherever they're hiding this information or keeping it from us, we don't know. We don't know. And it's an interesting thing to say that maybe the elites have long gone. Maybe they've gone, and this information somewhere has gone or is hidden. We can't find it yet. But we're left with a kind of headless chicken establishment that don't really know what they're doing, except they've been used to being run by Project Power and Greed, which they no longer have above them, but they're using this to their advantage. Again, this is all just ideas and speculation, but the bottom line is it's not a happy situation that we have at the moment for most of us. Sorry, I interrupted your conversation there. Sorry, Karen.
No, I interrupted. It's just that I know the conversation is going another way, and I don't really want to get off that, but I just wanted to ask you a question. I just saw it on another video about Silbury Hill. And they were saying that Silbury Hill used to be a lot bigger than it was because some of it is now sunk into the ground. And as you've been in it, is that what you think?
Oh, absolutely. Just simply because it would have been the wind and the rain and all the rest of it around our climate. I mean, there was a different climate 13,000 years ago, but because the meteorite strike, that moved the climate. So we've got desert in Egypt where it was once lush land and so on. But the fact is, if you go to some pyramids just outside on the plateau, smaller pyramids that look like Silbury Hill, you can still see the bricks and the stones and so on, because that's in like an arid country. But in our country, because of the wind and the rain, it's blown away a lot of the soil, blown away a lot of the earth and so on. And it's made of limestone, not granite or so on. So the limestone has taken its toll, and it's just slowly get washed down into the soil, have been blown away or just washed away. So to answer your question, Cara, so it was a lot bigger than it is today. To the point
How much bigger do you reckon?
there were other Silbury Hills or pyramids around that have all gone because they were washed down to a certain height, and the farmers just could dig them out and get them off their land, as it were.
So how much bigger do you think Silbury Hill was then?
I haven't got the figures here. I did have it written down somewhere, and probably on my leaflet, which I don't have to hand, but there was an estimate, a guesstimate of how big it was, but it was very similar in height to maybe a little bit bigger than, there's a little pyramid next to the Bent Pyramid in Egypt. It looks very similar to that. If you ever get a photograph of the Bent Pyramid, you'll see there's a pyramid behind it, and it looks very much like Silbury Hill. And it's left of that height, I can't remember what it was, 600 meters, 60 meters, it must be 60 meters, sorry. But I did have the sizes. There was some kind of people put together, some friends of mine who kind of trying to extrapolate what it could have looked like, but I just can't, I don't have that figures with me, no.
So is that why it collapsed a little bit? Is that why it collapsed? Is that why it collapsed, 2002, whatever it was, 2001?
Well, it collapsed because we had aristocrats, if you like, back in the day, back in the 17th century and so on, that were digging tunnels, and somebody dug a tunnel right down the centre, from the top down to the centre. I've forgotten the names now. I used to have all these facts at my fingertips. But there are lots of tunnels dug into the mount over the years, including the English Heritage. They had a couple of tunnels dug in there, one in 1971, I think it was, 69. Yeah, excuse me, I might get the dates wrong. That was Atkinson Tunnel. and actually had a big BBC film studio in the middle of near the middle of the Silbury Hill at one point. So you can imagine with all this stuff going on inside, and with the rain, constant rain coming through over the centuries, it's just collapsed. So they've tried to shore it up by putting in some kind of material to keep it in place, but just basically as a kind of a mound, as a tourist attraction. But they've kind of destroyed it, really.
Yeah. Do you think that they wanted it to collapse?
I probably, yeah, probably. It's they certainly don't want it to be opened again. They don't want anyone else to go inside it.
So we're very lucky to be talking to a man that has been inside it.
Yes, and collected a lot of information as well. And but I have one hope. There's one thing that they didn't do, which they could have done, was to measure that mica sheet that was on the base of the pyramid. They couldn't measure it. But I think as GPR technology improves with satellite links to satellite, they might be able to actually beam down and get a picture of that particular size, and that might give you some clue as to the size of the base of the Silbury Hill pyramid.
Hey, Kosta's just joined us. Hello, Kosta.
Hi. Hello, guys. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, John. Hi, John.
Hi,
Nice to hear you. Nice to hear you. Nice, interesting
He lives
stuff.
in Bath, John.
I went to Avebury and Silbury Hill last week.
Oh, good.
Yes.
What do you think?
Wow, amazing place. Definitely. I'm still seeing it in my mind. You know, it's very important, and I would like to ask you a few things because I missed a bit of the talk. I just joined now. I heard you a bit before about the stones. Those, do you think that the stones originally, before when they first set them up, they were carved in a rectangular position?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, they seem to. I think they did actually measure one of the blocks, and I forgot what the size of it was now, but they could measure the size of the blocks. They were rectangular blocks. Yeah.
And then they eroded in time.
Yes.
And they had this strange shape like they have now.
Correct. But they did still, even with the strange shape now, they did actually, near the top of the hill, they did manage to find some blocks that they could. I'm just trying to think where. Anyway, it's just. No, I can't. Oh. Sorry, I'm just ruffling about. I'm just looking to see if I had somewhere that had gave me the sizes of the blocks. But I did have I did produce a leaflet, which
Never there when you want it, is it?
I can't find it. But it doesn't matter. It just.
Okay, so you think that they cut them before they brought them there? They cut them from the mountain.
Yes.
And they carried them there. Some are from Wales, I think.
I don't know if you can see that. Maybe not very clearly. Probably can't see that very clearly, but you get an idea of the block there.
Ah, that one. Yeah, I see it.
And it was about. They were about 74 centimeters high, 30 centimeters thick. Yeah, it was 29 by 39.5 by 12 pyramid inches. So they're quite a big, quite a decent sized block. Yeah.
So these were on top of the hill as well. They had the hill was covered with blocks.
Yeah,
it's not as we see it now.
That's a painting I
Ah, that's it. Ah,
did.
okay, okay. There you go.
Give you an
That's
idea.
it. That's,
And you put
yes, yes.
Saracen stone block on the top, and they find lumps of the Saracen stone in the side of the hill. And that's basically
Yeah,
a
yeah.
transducer. That's used as Angel will be able to tell you. That's used as to convert energy from one form of energy to another. So this pyramid was basically a generator producing electricity.
Electricity. Yes, yes,
Because there was water actually flowing underneath it.
yes. And it was
Water.
helping the Earth.
Basically, the atoms were ionized as water underneath, and there was basically a flow of ionic current going through the
Ionic current. Yes, that's it. That's it.
the pyramid. Yeah, that gives you an idea, Karen, what the height might have been looked like. Maybe a lot bigger than that, a bit higher than that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A white pyramid then.
Wow, wow.
Yes, it was white because it's basically made of limestone. Yeah.
Mm.
And just asking you,
well.
it's one of the oldest ones, isn't it? You think it's one of the oldest pyramids?
Yes, I think it could be one of the initial pyramids that they started to build to start to create the early building blocks of their civilization. But you'll find pyramids, literally hundreds, if not thousands, of pyramids all over the planet, different continents on Earth. Many of them have disappeared, but there's still some turning up today. We're still finding more pyramids in China, more pyramids that are under the water, as you know.
Under the water, yeah. Even in the Azores Islands in the Atlantic, even there they have step pyramids there. I mean, that's a deserted place there. It's in the middle of the ocean. So how can it be?
Well, this is the thing that this happened, as I said, you maybe didn't hear this, but about 10,500 years ago, there was a meteorite strike, and this had destroyed the planet. It wasn't strong enough with the age of the dinosaurs to wipe out the dinosaurs. So it didn't actually, this one in 10,000 years ago, it didn't actually wipe out the population.
I don't think many flat earthers believe in dinosaurs anymore either.
That's
another lie.
Another thing about a meteorite. How can it enter the atmosphere on the Earth through the firmament? How can it pass through?
John, just to say that flat earthers, or most flat earthers, believe that we're living under some kind of firmament or dome. That we're in an enclosed system.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know. That's an area that is very, I just don't know enough about that.
Maybe there's a crack. Maybe it's somewhere there's a crack and it came through.
Yeah. I don't know. I just say if you look at a lot of this called the Younger Dice global event, there's a massive event occurred about 10,000 years ago. Now, it may not have been a meteorite. I mean, that's the sort of thinking, but there could have just been massive earthquake and disruption, volcanic disruption. That basically caused a huge tsunami, which washed right through the Mediterranean and into Egypt and all over.
Electrical arcing.
This is given the reasons why many of these pyramids are underwater. And there's another interesting thing they discovered. The other thing they discovered that there was animals that would never normally cohabit together. Their bones were found in caves, which had always been washed into the ground and washed into different caves, just because of the movement of the oceans and so on. Just lots of other clues to show that there was this massive flood situation 10,500 years ago.
Yeah, I've been reading work from Graham Hancock.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? I think.
Yes, I know him quite well. I know I've done some talks with him in the past, way back a few years ago.
Yeah, you met him personally?
Yeah, so him and a guy called Robert Bouval, they were very...
Robert Bouval, yes. Very, very good. Excellent.
Yeah.
So I think he's very, very close. What he's saying is correct information.
Yes.
And about the Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that site they found that was about 10,000 years.
Yeah, they're now beginning to date that out to 10,000 years. Yes, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, so that breaks down the story of the pyramids and all that they say it's 4,000 years. No, it's not possible.
This is it. You see, hey, you're absolutely right. See, what because the establishment said it was 4,000 years and they're built for tombs of pharaohs, then this is back to what I've been saying. Our minds have all been manipulated to think like that.
Yeah,
this is what's happened. But as time is moving on, we're beginning to realize that they can't hide things now as much as they could in the past, and we're becoming smarter. We're beginning to get understand some of these magic tricks or some of their knowledge. And as soon as we start to understand their knowledge and develop our own, there's lots of independent researchers out there like myself who very much cleverer than I am, very much into sophisticated technology, who are measuring things and looking for things, and they're all discovering that all these things are way much older than what the establishment have been telling us over the last few hundred years, really.
We discussed this before. In the UK, they just put one level on it, don't they? Anything that's older is just put at 4,500 years.
Yeah. And that's a key point in terms of it, as we evolve for the establishment archaeologists. That's a point in time where we move from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. So it sits neatly on this timeline. That as we move from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, we were able to build all these amazing things like Stonehenge. But as I've talked to English heritage guys, there's no indication of any population big enough, graves or anything around Stonehenge at that time to show that it was built at that time. And in fact,
only to carry the stones, some of them are from Wales. I mean, how could they bring them from there, like 60-ton megalithic blocks down to Stonehenge or Avebury? It's impossible with that technology they had then. They must have some other knowledge of the like telekinesis to move the stuff with some other equipment on the air. That goes way pre-Diluvian time, before the flood, something.
Yeah, you see, that's right. And the other thing we're being discouraged from is thinking for ourselves. This is why I've talked about this idea called realizationism. We've got to start thinking for ourselves.
Yes,
and as soon as you start not believing that that these things were believing the explanations given by the establishment and starting to think for ourselves, we can think much better we can come up with better ideas and better theories for how the pyramid was built. And if we're left to our own devices and left to study and to research and discuss things like with each other, we can start to meet someone else. Oh yeah, I heard someone talk about music and sound could have been a way of levitation, or the fact that there was something.
We'll never know what it was like unless all the pyramids were working.
Well, we maybe still find someone, again, I think it was Angel was saying, we might discover something else buried somewhere that hasn't been touched by establishment archaeologists and so on, that might give us some more clues.
Can I ask a question? I can ask it to you or Angel. I hope Angel comes in maybe. But I was watching a little bit about one of the pyramids, and they were saying because it was covered in limestone, when the sun shone on it, it would have looked like a star. It would have been so bright. Do you believe that? I just saw that on a video.
Well, yes, I think so. But then this highlights the fact that these sort of things are probably seen from the sky. I mean, there's a guy, World War II American pilot, who flew over China, and he saw this amazing white pyramid with a sarsen stone, granite stone on the top, glinting like a diamond. He explained it, sparkling like a diamond on the top. So it's very clear to see these things from above. And again, it shows you that potentially back in the early civilization, people were actually up in the air. They were flying about. You just need to look at the lines in Peru and so on to realize that they were able to observe things from above. So yeah, I think.
So, John, do you know anything about the Glastonbury zodiac? That can be seen from above.
No, I don't. No, I haven't heard about that one. I mean, I've heard about it, but I don't know enough about it. No.
Okay. I just have a book now. I borrowed a book from the library to read it.
Okay.
And I will tell you next time we talk about it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll look at.
Can I just say, so Angel came back for a moment then. Angel, come back. Angel.
Go for a drink.
Angel, what were you going to say?
You were asking why I believe. Have you ever seen when you look through sun coming through a window how it shimmers? The same thing would be true anytime there's movement of sunlight, energy, anything like that. Static electricity. It'll make the surface of that particular thing shimmer a little bit. And if I am correct about what I believe the structure does, it acts as a big Van de Graaff generator where the static electricity is isolated from escaping from the top of the structure because it doesn't have a top, and it's stunted from shorting to ground because of the 35th level, which has it's like 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters, both in depths and size. It's a nice big thing. You practically have to, climb a step ladder to get up that one. It's a very tall step, and that isolated the static electricity to the surface of the structure. And it was that static electricity that, when it's at its peak, would any air in the immediate area would be given energy and would shimmer. It would either get some heat or something. I mean, and it would look shimmering. I believe the structure is exactly as the structure was to the most part. And I don't think it had any type of a shell or anything on it, because if it did, that would kind of negate what I like to call Caitlin's rock garden at the top of it, where you can see a very set structure at the top with a pattern and everything else. In fact, there's some really nice 3D CADs that people have done of it. Thank goodness the data is now available online, so it can be 3D printed and you can have one of your own any size you want because it's scalable. Yay! And it is a definite structure to it. There's a recessed from the surface area that's kind of a pool V shape, kind of like a handprint. And then it's got a bubble over at the north that has the purplish color rock, which happens to be the geodesic center of what they like to call the earth or the plane or whatever you want to. We can bicker back and forth, but they still calculate that as being the center of the land mass. And ironically enough, it's on the top of the structure we're discussing, which ironically enough, in accordance with Carl Monk's code series, points out how the Giza pyramid is set to be their Greenwich mean, the 0 point from the calculation of how to read most of these monolithic structures from altitude and read them as waypoints when you're gliding around. I believe in Zeppelins, dirigibles. I haven't really seen anything yet that tells me they had, blades whipping through the air causing a vacuum. They were much more in tune with nature from what I can see and everything I get. I'm not into quite yet that they were, in flying saucer type things using harmonics or anything like that. But I do know they had access to large, number one, because of the structure we were looking at a few weeks ago in South America. I do believe they had large flying vessels, and how they didn't have runways there, it makes me think that they floated like Zeppelins or dirigibles. But then again, they could have been flying saucers. But I'm still into the Zeppelins and dirigibles.
Good.
And again, I mentioned, we're going to go back to the word realization, because that's what the topic was.
Yeah,
we were talking about maybe really quick, if they pyramid on.
If they were to take the wooden structure off the top of the Great Giza Pyramid today, it would, over a matter of a couple of weeks, regain a static electric bubble on the outside of it. People can go up there and get sparks to jump off their fingers and stuff. And it would probably, from a distance, kind of shimmer. And it would do exactly what it was meant to do, at least in that part, because that's what it was engineered to do. And although that's just a piece of the Giza Plateau, that's just I guess you would say your power source. That is the energy that is harvest that nature will provide all by herself, or himself, or itself, or I don't know what gender the nature is.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, can I ask something else then, completely different? John, do you believe that Silbury Hill links up with the Giza complex?
Oh yes, I think they're all connected, and I think we're beginning to understand that through ley lines and so on. But the ancient sort of Wi-Fi, whatever you want to call it.
So what happens if they all linked up the wrong way? Because through research on this group by artists, we receive these great big electrical arcings. So what happens if, it does say in the pyramids about, to be aware of this power, even if that was written afterwards by the Egyptians. But what happens if something went wrong and they all worked together wrong because they all had so much power?
Well,
that could have caused.
Yeah, the problem is now they're all kind of pretty well defunct because, for example, the pyramids in Egypt, you need a water source and all this sort of thing to start to generate electricity. But if you look at the place I know, like Silbury Hill, when they did descend when the tunnel collapsed and the shaft collapsed and people descended into the shaft at Silbury Hill, I think I mentioned this before, their mobile phones were destroyed, and there's a huge bolt of white light came out of the pyramid. It was almost like a capacitor discharge of energy. It was like a big ball of light that came out.
Wow.
So Silbury Hill was still able, even that defunct state, still able to produce some kind of energy that came out when people descended, when the thing collapsed. The people went into it very quickly after the shaft collapsed. They're actually crop circle guys, and I've actually got a DVD of the film, the footage they took inside.
Wow. Kind of what Angel was just saying, that they, could still get stuff to be happening on the keypad.
That's a DVD, and you can see the whole. There's a chamber inside the hill. That's a DVD that was produced. And this is them showing. You can see it here, showing the phone that has been destroyed, and all sorts of things going on, describing how they'd gone inside the Silbury Hill hole and discovered all these amazing things. Just leading on to what you're saying about energies, that even in that collapsed state, were still coming out of Silbury Hill.
Can I say something that's very weird though? Because Angel loves his pyramids, right? And he can talk about them. But John, just to explain to everybody, hardly anybody in the UK knows it's a pyramid, do they?
No, because back to the whole thing about my talk today, this evening, about realizationism, is that they believe what they've been told. So they're all being told it's the largest man-made chalk mound in Europe. So that's what they will believe, and they'll continue to believe that because that's what people are told. It's very difficult to shift that kind of information because some people are not really bothered anyway. But those who are interested, who start to explore it, will begin to realize, oh, there's something a bit more to it. But it's just part of this brainwashing thing. If you're part of this stuff that you've been told, it's like the pyramids in Egypt. If you ask anyone what are the pyramids built for in Egypt, they're built for tombs for pharaohs, and they'll still tell you that because that's what they're taught in school. And just this whole idea back to realizationism, we've got to start thinking for ourselves. Start thinking. Many of us won't be bothered. We're quite happy with the way things are going. That's fine. We're happy to be maybe told what to do or so on. But if you want to start thinking for yourself, then I think that's just not just talk about things like Silbury Hill or pyramids or so on. Just everyday life, things that are happening to you. Do I listen to things I've been told? Do I question them? Do I have to ask somebody else what they think, or do I just blindly go ahead and do what basically I'm told to do? So I've drifted away from the pyramids again.
We did a little bit, didn't we? We did a little bit, but it's all interlinked because they've lied so much about the pyramids, even the one that's here.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, Marlborough's got a smaller one. So there's one in Marlborough. There's Silbury Hill, then there's Avebury, the Stone Circle, then there's the Long Barrow, there's Strawberry Hill. There's just masses of it there.
Yes, I think the last thing to say on the subject really is that because establishment, and because they've given themselves back to this labels idea, they can call themselves archaeologists and professors and so on, because what they say it's a pile of chalk or it's whatever, then that becomes fact. There is no fact. There's nothing to prove that Silbury Hill's the age it is or Stonehenge is the age it is. They can't prove it, but they turn their speculation into fact. But if I say anything about, oh, Silbury Hill is a pyramid, they'll just say, well, no, that's just speculation. That's pure speculation. You're making it up. You're a crackpot or whatever. And but luckily, I had a brilliant reputation as a guy working at Intel, and I had a brilliant reputation as through my research and so on. So very few people actually see me as a crackpot or a crank. They just see me as somebody who's curious and open to ideas.
Hey John, do you know how I found out? Do you know how I found out Silbury Hill was a pyramid? It's in the pyramid of the world. It's on the internet as a pyramid on a web page, and then I went looking about Silbury Hill, and then I found you. Yeah.
Yes, and again, I know the guy who does wrote that article, a European guy. I met him at a conference in Bosnia when I went to meet Sam Smanovic, the guy who does the Bosnian pyramid, because we're all kind of linked. So we're a network of guys who are into pyramids. So we all communicate quite regularly. I was asked to look at the Malvern Hills to see if they were pyramids the other week, a year ago. I was actually up there yesterday, but I would say they're definitely not pyramids. But it's amazing where the pyramids may be found, and I always get people sending me texts and emails and so on, saying, "Oh, I found something. I've got this information," and it's it used to be almost daily, but it's much less now. But because I've become less involved, but there's other people picked up the baton, as it were, and they're researching this stuff all the time. So it's very encouraging. I'm very encouraged about what's happening, about how people are towards trying to understand. I mean, can I just finish with a very strange ending, if you like, to my discussion? When you look at Greek mythology, you find all these strange creatures, different, half man, half horse, half this, half that, and so on. And you begin to look at the story in the Bible about Noah taking animals 2 by 2 into the ark. And I started to wonder, is it possible that this ark was actually a pyramid or pyramids, and they weren't actually taking animals in for genetic engineering, genetic experimentation? So where all these things were mythological creatures, the question I throw out to you just as a bit of fun really is, did they actually exist? And after the civilization was destroyed, they obviously couldn't survive in the because they were, well, we found out for many years after, even up to the Victorian times, there were freak circuses where they displayed all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures and animals and so on, which obviously over time have disappeared. And again, there's been a lot of odd things that have probably been hidden again in that area of strange animals and creatures. So it's just, again, it's a little bit of fun where there were all these statues and paintings and drawings of mythological creatures, but did they actually?
Sorry, did they actually exist? We just lost that last word. Well,
Did they actually exist?
We don't know, because they keep changing the history, don't they?
But then it's
intriguing. Built the pyramid.
Because if they did exist, it means they were experimenting. And I always say, whatever they did back in this extraterrestrial civilization, the knowledge is moving. Their knowledge is coming through the elites and through us in our unconscious memory. So we're beginning to do the same thing now. We're beginning to experiment with genetics, and I think that back in the day, ET genetically engineered the Homo sapien to produce the intelligent Homo sapien. That is us. And I have a feeling that somebody in the future will genetically engineer a chimpanzee or something. They'll start to mess around with it if they're not already doing so, and begin to see what happens with that. and we're already seeing genetic engineering going on with, you usually look at the Crufts Dog Show and so on to see all sorts of creatures, different, well, creatures, dogs obviously, different varieties of dogs that are being produced. So it's, again, another thing that may have happened back in our early civilization, that the knowledge is still with us, that's slowly eking out through each generation. We're beginning to recover knowledge, but yeah, just an idea.
You don't think either, you or Angel or anybody, that the pyramids were there because that's how we were made? They needed all the catastrophe, they needed the electrical arkings, they needed all this to happen to create Eden, sort of thing. You don't think that was the reason then, that they actually created us or helped create us?
I think they helped create us, but I think they needed some kind of because we're talking about doing this on the moon, building kind of pyramid type things, because we need to create an atmosphere, and they need to create an atmosphere that would suit them. So say they came from some other planet, not too distant. I mean, there's a rumour now speculating that they may have come from not that far away, such as Mars. Because the other thing they're beginning to wonder, and this is another conspiracy thing, or maybe been hidden from us, but they reckon they're beginning to find statues and things on Mars that have been.
We don't think that's real though anymore, because the stars are just above our heads, and the planets are like wandering stars.
Yeah,
they're not very big. There's no way we've been to the moon. There's no nothing. It's all a lie.
Scientifically, I mean, again, working in the semiconductor electronics revolution, as it were, we definitely can produce software and hardware to do that. Like we can produce the electronics. Whether they did actually, they could actually do it, because for the reasons you said. So they made up the sort of film set somewhere to show that they landed on the moon. And that's all. Again, there's a whole lot of people written books about that idea. So, did we land on the moon? Well, that's a debate. That's a separate debate.
It is. Yeah. Kosta, do you want to say anything?
Anyway, I think I can leave you to your discussions. Have I've maybe bored you enough with my ideas?
No, we're not bored at all. You don't have to go. You can stay a bit longer if you want to, or have you had enough now? Because obviously we've been on for a couple of hours.
Oh no, it's fine. If anyone, yeah, I'm interested to hear what other people have to say. Of course, that's a.
Well, we're all at the same place, that we need a change.
Yeah.
None of us, even my son was mentioning it, that people are noticing that it's just things that just don't feel very good. That it's just everybody's unhappy with the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We somehow just have to learn to come together. There is one good thing I'd just like to say to you, John.
Mm-hmm.
We've started something with Mr. Thrive and Survive now, if you know who he is, on YouTube. And it's called peopleforpeople.life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of replacement for Facebook, and maybe even being on here. Right. But the idea is, at the end, that you'll be able to find out who's in your community and start making your own communities again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that would be good, because again, as I was saying about this particular subject, that the ideas can just be shared. I mean, whatever I've said to you and the rest of the guys that listening to what I've been saying, you can take that on board. Some of the things I've said on board, I say, well, yeah, I think that I can understand that, but I've got some I can add to it, and then you pass that on to someone else, and they pass it on to someone else, and it's just this massive movement of word of mouth, or sending texts or videos or whatever, to just spread the word and let it get a life of its own, because I think it's important to get this message across, because the way we're going, I think the people who are running us at the moment, who are basically the establishment and so on, they're just motivated by their own greed, really. they're not really looking after the planet. I mean, if you take one last simple thing, it's our fault that well, the greenhouse effect and the poles are melting and so on, because we're using air sprays, or we're using electricity generated by coal. But if you look at the thousands of flights every day, burning up millions and millions of gallons of fossil fuel, that's okay. The elites in the establishment will say that's okay, because that's obviously making huge money for them, and it suits them for that to happen. But you know, that's a major source of the problems that we have with global warming, is the fact that it's frightening to know how many flights. I think even just out of London, I think you're talking about 8,000 flights in a day. It's just, so there's just things that they will blame us for, rather than
and plus all the planes that are doing the chemtrails.
And some of the planes some of them are flying almost empty, or some of them are empty because they're shuffling around from one area to another, because they have to place them in the right spots in the right places. Some of them are just flying up to keep the routes open, but with not many passengers in them. So there's just you're talking about wasting fossil fuels. It's just, I mean, I think I did say that the amount of fuel they use flying from London to New York, they use more fuel in that flight than drivers using a season.
I'm not even sure whether that's real either, that these new planes that they're building seem to levitate nowadays. They seem to be able to do vertical takeoffs. So there's something going on with our aeroplanes as well. They can't even tell us the truth about those things.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just, what suits them, it's okay, but they won't blame that, because that industry, it's like the tobacco industry, it's like the snack industry.
Yeah, they manipulate it, they cause it, and then they blame us for it.
That's right. It's a massive industry for them, profit-making industry from them, air travel, but it's not doing the planet any good.
Nothing much seems to be doing the place we live very good, does it really?
Yeah, I just say the blame, as I say, they tend to just blame us for things that's not. I mean, the financial crisis, that's not the bankers' fault. That's basically, our benefit system or whatever. It's something that they'll blame, rather. But come on, I lost touch with it now. But I remember at the time they're using all sorts of other excuses for blame the bankers themselves. I don't think any of them went to jail, did they?
No.
His answer to that is no.
I don't know. Astral reckons that something's happening right now, don't you, Astral? Astral, are you there? Astral.
Hello.
Astral, tell John what you've noticed was that Q's saying.
Oh, I don't want to get into all that. I really don't. But there's a lot of things going on in America, if you know what I mean. You just got to search online. I don't really want to get into things, because it's like a lot happening and maybe not. Who knows? Let's just see. But,
wait and see. Yeah.
Wait and see. I'm patient.
Well, this is it. At least we know. I think we know we're kind of realizing what's happening. Then we just have to wait and see, how they're going to manipulate us next. What they're going to say to us, how they're going to discredit. The next thing they're going to do to discredit Donald Trump. The next thing they're going to do to try and block Brexit. The next thing, it's going to be intriguing to watch how they're going to promote that Charles and Camilla will make a wonderful king and queen. I mean, to see how they promote that. It's interesting times. Anyway, I will.
And then the fake. Oh, do you want to leave, John?
Anyway, I'm just saying. I'll let you get on with the rest of your. I will. I've got an early start tomorrow, so I'm going to catch up with a few things before I get organised for tomorrow. But thank you for having me again.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and we agree with you, all of us on this panel, about what you're saying. Maybe it's going to be the new word. What's the new word going to be, John?
Well, I'm calling it realizationism, but if you want to make up some other word, but it's basically realizing how that we're all important, we're all very clever, and we're being manipulated by the elites establishment through the projects, Project Fear, Project Greed, and so on. And it's just recognizing that this is what's happening, and we don't really need, we need to think for ourselves. It's very important, really, that we have to.
Do you talk to people about this? Do you talk to other people?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, as I mentioned to you, I've written lots of articles that you can find on eZine articles and on my website and so on. And I've also do talks. I've been doing some talks for over the last year or so, different places. In fact, I did that one with Miles Johnson, the first basis project conference in Marlborough a few years ago. And that was before Project Fear and Elites and Project Fear and Project Greed became mainstream. We talked about that about 2014, I think it was, a conference there. So,
and what's the feedback you get? What's the feedback you get from these people when you do your talks and things? Then
I think the feedback I get is just what you've been saying. The thing, it all resonates with everybody. Once you say it, this is why it's trying to put a label to it. Once you actually mention what it is, give it a label, then people start to think about it and recognize it and just quietly think, yeah, that's interesting. Some will basically just take that on board inwardly and just say, well, wait a minute, I've been told by my doctor I need to do this, or I've been told by somebody I need to smoke cigarettes, or I've been told by somebody I need to eat lots of burgers and things, and I've been whatever, and you got to think, well, hold on, right? So they're starting to think a bit, stop and think a bit more about themselves and looking after themselves and taking more control.
what do your family think then? Just asking.
Sorry?
Are your family with you on this?
I think they.
Oh no, he's stuck. Is everybody else here? You're here, aren't you, Kosta?
That's
Oh, no, he's back now.
so she's enlightened Buddhist. So yeah, and I just basically trying to get ideas going, get discussions going, because the thing that's really important to me in all the things I do is feedback. And as long as, if I get people come back saying, well, I think that was very interesting, but that I don't agree with that because I don't, whatever, or I think, or they add something to what I've been saying, and there's something I haven't thought about. And this is the whole excitement about it, is that it's there's lots of exciting things come from it, but it's pretty fundamental, really. It's just basically saying, you know, be in charge of your own mind, your own subconscious mind. Don't let it yourself be too manipulated. Have a bit of fun with the TV commercials and things like that you can, whatever, but don't take on board some of the serious things that are going on, because the elites are very ruthless, and they can do really nasty things. As one last thing to say, when Saddam, I think I mentioned this before, when Saddam Hussein, the Americans were beginning to get tired of it, of the idea about going to war with them, and so George Bush was beginning to panic, and all the generals were thinking, oh yeah, there's no appetite in the States. And then they got a journalist from one of the main American newspapers, and the guys in the States will back this up, to print an article that Saddam Hussein was, soldiers were killing babies in southern Mesopotamia, somewhere down the southern part of Iraq. And immediately that was published, the whole of the public in America went mad and said, oh, we've got to get rid of this beast, he's terrible. And then after the war was finished, it was admitted that was made up, well, we now call it, this is a new word that Trump's come out with, it was fake news. But it created that war, and it changed the public opinion just with this one fake news article. And I think we're beginning to try to see through the news now, to see that a lot of it's fake news. In fact, most of it is fake news, especially when you see we've been run by people like Murdoch and so on. You can't trust anything these guys are are saying. So it's a very complicated, difficult to see what's going on, but we have to be. But I say most people are just getting on with it quietly. They just think, well, I've got my own mindset. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm thinking. And
do you know what I think happened, John? I think that in the 80s and 90s, the Gulf Wars, they kind of took us there and showed it to us live, but they don't do that anymore. They try not to take us anywhere live anymore.
No.
Not the wars.
No, you'd see the Syrian thing. And because you imagine the Blitz in London and the Second World War with the bombs that they had. Well, the bombs were 10, 50 times bigger and more powerful that were dropped on Baghdad. And it's just absolutely, the horrible expression they use, shock and awe, and the terms they use, it's just disgraceful. But, Bush and Blair are still wandering about, free men.
Yeah, that's because they changed the law, isn't it, after 9/11? I mean, the Americans got the Patriot Act, and we got something. You couldn't, we couldn't go take the government of the day to court, like war crimes.
Yeah.
So this is why they can get away with it.
Yeah. It's back to the elites looking after the establishment and looking after the puppets that they've got. But anyway, I'll leave you with those thoughts.
Oh,
Thanks, Karen.
Can I say something?
We very much enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
No, my pleasure. Someone wants to say something before I go?
Yeah, John. A pleasure talking to you, listening to you. Very, very good news. I'm very happy. And I just want to say at my thing, because you were talking before about money and about governments and all that stuff. Personally, I think that we don't need this. We don't need it.
Nope.
We just have to put it in our minds that we don't need this stuff. We don't need nobody to rule us. If you have someone ruling you, you are a slave. So no slaves, no masters. That's what has to change. Because we give them the power, like you said. But actually we are. Our thoughts are the strongest things we have. So if we combine all humanity thought together to think the same thing, that we can live free, like the sovereign right we have from God on this earth, and we have the love inside us, we are born with that, then we can make that change. But for now, I think we are getting somewhere. I think that it's a good starting point. Hopefully we pray to live that kind of nice life together, humanity. Yes, thank you, John. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for summarising what I've been saying. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Oh, thank you. Until we'll meet again. Okay.
Thanks for coming on, John. It's awesome hearing you.
Bye.
Brilliant. Thank you.
But thank you very much. Bye, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, darling. Yeah, there he goes. Well, thank you very much to John, and someone who knows that Silbury Hill is a pyramid. He may not have looked into everything that like everybody does. His thing is pyramids. Yeah, because he did mention space, but we all flat earthers, most of us believe none of that's true. So but it was a real joy having him on. He's such a lovely man. Angel, are you there? Angel. I know Lev's there. Angel?
You rang?
Oh, I know. He's a lovely man, and everything he said was correct on that realization thing. You're still here. Before we came on, we were talking about, and you were explaining things about how you didn't think that there was a fourth pyramid.
Well,
on the Giza Plateau.
I haven't really. What tells me if it's part of the system is if it's documented in the Nazca lines, and I don't have all of them, and I keep coming into areas where there are houses and cities built on top of it, so it's hard to know what I'm missing until I got all of it. But that doesn't mean that a structure wasn't there. It just means that it may not be part of the system that is documented in the Nazca lines, which we today call the Giza Pyramid, and I call the Pyramid Plateau. But there were are other things outside of it. I mean, that were structures made by people of the same time. So yes, there may have been another structure, but that may not mean that it's a functional part of the structures that I'm trying to address. That's all I'm saying.
I saw another video, right? Because I don't know, I suddenly get into the pyramid things, and yesterday and today was just the pyramid thing. But someone wrote on like the picture, they put this, like, so the pyramids, your pyramids, the Giza pyramids, those ones, the big ones are, say, the third dynasty, and then the smaller ones are the fourth and fifth dynasty. Well, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I don't believe into that, primarily because I don't think that they built them at all. I think they just inherited them by story. And whether or not, maybe they did take hypothetically, they took a long time to build them. If they were all built as part of one system, then they are still all built out of one system, even though it may have taken them 100 years to build it, which would be a really big undertaking. I mean, I think some of the longest projects we did only were like 30 years and stuff, but it's possible. Well, if you look at the Federal Reserve, it's been going on for, a century plus. And if you look at the whole money system and how it's been corrupted, I would like to suggest it was corrupted in the around 1400s by, when the church decided to start deciding tithing was okay, is when the church was corrupted by money. And ever since then, we've been on a downhill slide, because the love of money is the root of evil. Root to evil. Road to evil. Whichever way you want to look at it.
It's just like, it's just, I so wish we could find, I mean, could you really believe that they could levitate these things that weigh tons and tons and tons? Even with levitation.
You're talking about the rocks?
Yeah.
What?
The ones underneath it.
I still currently believe that many of the monolithic structures, the rocks were fabricated. And many examples, including the video of your one where they pointed out the stairway you pointed to me. The person documenting said that it really shows, after much research, that the area is of a fabricated rock. It was an engineered rock. Not that it was dug into it, but that the rock itself is a fabricated rock. And I was like happy when I heard that part of the video, because I believe the same thing. The reason it's like sandstone and limestone, because it's easy to make. It cures, boom, it's done, and it's non-conductive, because when you're working with electricity, you need non-conductive pieces, so that's why on our PC boards it's made with green board, which is, board, wood, well, at its base. Now it's all plastic.
If it got petrified, what would that have done to it then?
If it got French fried?
No, petrified.
Well, unless you add minerals to it, it's not going to become conductive.
So they haven't changed through whatever's happened to us then?
The pyramids.
So it didn't affect. So it didn't affect them then. That's what you're saying. It wouldn't have affected them
over time. No, I mean a rock is, wood and metal would have rusted. Wood would have rotted away, and metal would have rusted, but the rock would stay the rock. I'm quite, actually, copper doesn't corrode. That's the reason we use it for things. Well, it does corrode a bit, but the knobs they found at the top on the Gantum Brink stores, they were a metal that wasn't really oxidizing over time.
So that's amazing in itself.
Well, yes. I mean, they knew, they had great knowledge that it shows they're just what we've discovered. One thing that John was saying is that we need to come up with new theories on how things were built. I don't think that's totally true. I think we need to come to new realizations of how things are. focusing on how it was done is really, you can come up with 1,000 stories for the same thing unless you were there to document it. But how it is how it is. We need to come to realization with how it is. The earth is flat. Realize it, move on.
What were you saying, Astral?
No, I was just saying, yeah, like thinking out the box or thinking out the pyramid in Angel's case, just thinking different. Like, yeah, it's true. Find different avenues to investigate. Hey, listen, I've got to go. I need to be up early tomorrow morning. So I need to say good night.
Yeah, because you're an hour on for us. Thanks for coming on, Astral. Thanks for your input and everything. We love you, Astral.
Take it easy, people.
Nice one.
God bless. Be good.
Big hugs. Speak to you tomorrow.
Been great, as always.
Yeah. I mean, John, what John was talking about today, I think most of us understood that bit about realization. So, yeah, realization about the pyramid. Because they were also purifying the water as well, weren't they? Amongst one of the other things they were doing.
Yeah, it will.
Talking about the Giza pyramids?
Yeah.
I'll know when it does when I get one that actually does something. I don't. There are other ways to purify water that's like an extreme way to do it. I think there's more to the story, but that's why I'd like to have an experiment to see what it does. It's like if somebody gave me the blueprints to a motor and then somebody says, well, how fast does it go? It's like, oh, I don't know until we turn it on, How strong is it? I don't know until we turn it on.
These things could have been doing a myriad of things, though, couldn't they? But I actually wondered whether there's this good side of them, which, these negative ions and all these frequencies.
Once you have electricity, you can then use it to do work like we do here now today. Once you have the knowledge of how to harness electricity, how to make electricity work for you, or how to tame it, how to, whatever word you want to put. You could rub your head on a balloon and get static electricity, and if you use it to pick up little pieces of paper on the ground, you've just used it to make work, but that's not really going to help you wash the dishes. So, we have discovered quite well how to utilize electricity quite efficiently. I point out with the fact that I'm using an iPhone right now that's been on this battery this whole time, that we can use micro amounts of electricity to do a whole lot. In the old days, this type of energy was thought like, what can you do with that? That's too little energy. But I think these guys were utilizing that little bit of energy, and there's lots of things you can do with a little bit of energy, especially when you have a large volume of it at your source. If somebody gave me like free water, but it's only a drip at a time, no problem. I just keep filling a bucket, and I use the bucket to fill my tub, and I use the tub to take a bath. I mean, you just use what you have. And I really think they were more efficient than that, but that's really where I want to build one and see what it does. I think I don't really think it was a water purification plant, although when you do break water into its elements and burn it back together, you practically do have pure water. But I really think that wasn't, because that water is contained within the system. It's not pulled out. There's no tap. So I don't think that's what it's doing. I really can't put forth that thought.
But there's not many pyramids with the inside of what the Giza pyramids have got. Or I suppose they don't know on some of them, do they? Some of these pyramids look really big in China.
Right. Well, I'd like to, hopefully, the Bosnia pyramid guys, they are attacking the pyramid from the bottom. Although, since it is electricity, I do think they're going to get to an area where there's a conductor above them, but they don't know it unless there's like some shiny brick wall that says conductor above you here. I think they're working right now in the power distribution tunnels, which are all elevated at a like elevation, and show wear of water about a third of the way up. And static electricity would ride on the surface of the water. It doesn't actually ride through the water. So electricity on a balloon or anything else, static electricity rides on the surface. I think these guys were utilizing static electricity where we have kind of modified it a little bit, and the way we use it, although I think electricity is electricity is electricity. It's the movement of electrons from point A to point B and getting work out of that movement. It's the same stuff, but it's different. It's like DC power and AC power are different, but they're still moving electrons from point A to point B.
That's the word that's come out a lot with electric lately. Dielectric, that kind of electric, or something.
Yeah. But you're still moving electrons from point A to point B. You either create a vacuum or create an abundance. And nature abhors a vacuum. So if you create an abundance, it will disperse out. If you create a vacuum, it'll just come in.
So what's your idea if all these pyramids resonated together suddenly and had a short out? Then what would happen? If they also got too clever for their riches, used the power the wrong way?
Can't answer that question without experimentation.
Lev, is there anything you want to say?
And if they're all upon the Earth, they would all be kind of resonating at approximately the same Schumann frequency anyway.
They're still sort of working though, aren't they? Because you said that, that one pyramid would suddenly be resonating.
Well, if you took anything, if you took Tesla's tower today and you put a big, ball of some metal thing at the top of a tower, and you had a wooden structure down to ground, and you just let it sit there, and then you just took a copper cable and ran it down from that ground, and you had a copper spike into the ground, and you put the two of them close to enough to each other, eventually it's going to get to there's going to be a spark. Boom, done. Then if you remove the wire from it and wait about a day and do it again, it's going to get another spark. And, over time, that will keep pulling static electricity to the surface of it, and you will keep shorting it to ground. That is nature all by itself. It will do that all by itself. That's what the structure does, is the way it was engineered without the top and with the insulation ring at the 35th level was to keep the static electricity to the surface of the structure, and it just sits there. That's all it does. The structure on the inside of it, the drips of water and vapor coming down and, basically an internal waterfall, is what pulls the static electricity down to the one level, and then you tap it off. But, we didn't know what electricity was. We saw a scar in the side of the chamber where the south conduit was, followed it through, found the conduit, found the other conduit, and then came up with a bunch of theories. We didn't know, no one had done your, what do you call that art that you like with the electrical arcing? Okay. That's what the crack in the south wall was an electrical arc. It was the scarring from the electrical arc over time that was arcing through the rock to the conduit behind it. But we didn't know what electricity was, so we wouldn't know what an electrical arc scar looked like. And as far as why they keep up with the tomb theory, is because they came up with a tomb theory before we knew what electricity was, and they've got a cash cow with tourism, and they don't want to change the story.
No, because it leads into too many other things. And
it also would document a higher knowledge at a point in the past. But I really think they don't even care about that, because things like Christopher Dunn, which I don't want to throw him under a bus, but I think he's kind of a little bit of controlled opposition. At least he was guided to the story he came up with. He comes up with ideas that the structure doesn't document, there's no, what he says would have occurred, the structure doesn't document. So it's coming up with an idea based on the structure, not reverse engineering the structure. You have to accept what you have and then work with it, as opposed to like, well, I'd like it to be like this and I'd like it to be like that, and then it works out perfect.
So you think it's a bit strange when they tell us that they put all those trillions of dollars into going to space, and we don't seem to have really any idea about where we live, and we can't go back in our history, and what we're doing is going to space in fake, cars.
Well, this is true. I'll agree with that part of that. They do go into space and fake it, and they're happy to take your money. They if as long as they can keep you entertained with bread and circus, then you're oblivious to what's really going on. And I do think, kind of like John was saying, that there are elites, and part of their issue is it's easier to kill 1 million people than it is to control 1 million people. And Silent Weapons for Silent Wars is another good book, which really says how if I can convince you to sterilize yourself, and or if I can sterilize you through the food quietly, then you will be, how they used to breed people out, where the your lord would have sex with your wife on your wedding night, and hey, your first kid was actually his, type stuff. Now they just, boom, you're going to be extinct, and you won't care about it. You'll spend hundreds of dollars going to the doctor to try to get pregnant and not worry about the Diet Coke that you're drinking is actually helping you not have children. Don't worry about that. You spend your money with the medical situation, they'll be happy, and as long as you don't breed, they're even happier. And if you adopt, that's great too, because then you never have your child, and if you don't give them all the shots on cue, then they take that child away from you because, well, we can go into stories.
Yeah, well, that's the truth, isn't it, Angel? Unfortunately, anything they tell you to do isn't good for you.
That's because we're playing in. They have set up the stage. They have set up the court. They have made the rules, and they keep changing rules. You can't sue people. Oh, why? Because we said so. So somebody did me wrong, and I can't sue them. The entity that did me wrong, I can't sue them because you said I can't sue them. Not in our court. What court? Well, not ours.
That's what I was saying about politicians. I thought they were there to help us, and to work for us.
Technically, politicians are there to keep continuity of government, and that's kind of their job at heart, at least in my country.
I grew up thinking. That's what I grew up thinking. That's what we're told, is they're there to sort of help us, and it's the last thing they do.
Practically. They follow the money, and lobbyists and stuff like that usually have much more money.
But that shows you where it is, doesn't it? Because they should be following the people. Without the people, you've got nothing. The people are starting to wake up now.
This is true. It would be nice if there was a big change.
Lev, do you want to say anything now? Patricia? Lev, Patricia, Lev, Patricia. They're both muted.
Do you remember Dragon's Den?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a TV show. It were people offering money if you had a good idea and stuff like that. But if it were a good idea for humanity and it weren't going to make profit, they weren't interested. So it was kind of part of rules. If it, you had to make it a profit-based idea. Otherwise, you're going to get kicked off at the show, kind of thing. And I kind of think like that realizationism is kind of that's part of the album, kind of indoctrinated the people, because it's how they take those rights away from us belief. I think, in a lot of ways, and legally, in other ways as well, like not just that, but I don't know. I kind of felt that, you know, in reference to what John was saying.
Yeah, it's sort of, we've blindly given it all away because, you know, we keep voting for them in. We have to stop voting for them. Somehow. That's just one way of doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It's pretty disgusting what they've done, really, isn't it, though? It's all disgusting. I can't, there's no other word. Sorry, carry on, Lev.
What else was it? It was saying about genetics in past, like you know, during the pyramid days and stuff kind of thing. I thought that was interesting. You know, there's all the mountains were giants and all those kind of videos. Giants. It's quite cool to visualize the past in like that kind of fantasy kind of way. I don't know whether, you know, that is just fantasy or is some of it true, you know, whether some giant trees are or what, I don't know. But I do like his idea. I do like that suggestion of the crossing genetics and getting like centaurs and them kind of things and stuff like that you get from the mythological side of stuff like.
I was talking to you this about the other day, wasn't I, Lev? That, you know, I told you I looked at the trees a few weeks ago and realised they're the Lindenberg figures without the leaves on. I'd never really looked at it like that before. So the trees are electric. But on that score, I've lived around here long enough that I can see some of these trees have grown. But the trees should be much big. If they've grown in the 10, 20 years that I've been here, right, these trees can only be 100 or 200 years old. So where's all the other trees then? If we've been here for thousands and thousands of years, where's all the other trees? Okay, we've got the redwoods and there are a few forests with big trees in them. But where's all the other trees then? There should be enormous great trees or just taller trees because there just should be. The trees are like...
The super giant trees might be a different type of tree. I mean, there might be like a different type of tree. Like, you know, you've got an oak tree and that grows to that particular size and stuff like that. The redwood grows to that particular size. And the giant trees would be a different type of tree, maybe. So would be
like they should be looking like weeds compared to what these trees should look like for the amount of years we've been here. It's almost like almost every country's been cleared of its trees. And the ones that are growing now are only about 100 or 200 years old, most of them. There's going to be the odd tree they're going to say is thousands of years old, or like the redwoods or the odd forest. But generally, like all the trees should look quite like that. We should have trees like that around. We've been here for what? Tens of thousands of years.
Well, then photographs of them, people sawing them down, weren't they?
I mean, even the big flood would have been thousands, or well, they're saying thousands of years ago. I just don't know with this history thing now when we're talking of thousands. I'm just not sure if anything is as old as they say it is because they've lied about everything anyway. But I just wonder why there aren't. I mean, supposedly there's a story here, right? There's a hill called Coombe Hill. It's the biggest chalk hill in England, about another 10 miles from me. On top of it, there is an ancient settlement, so they say. And there's also a hangman's noose up there where they used to hang people up there as well. The planes line up from Heathrow. It's great to look at stars. And they paraglide off it. In the Second World War, they used to jump off it with open parachutes because it's like going up in an aeroplane. Within minutes, you're on top of this thing. It's not the biggest hill in the world. It isn't. But around here it is. And, you know, Chalk Hill, for instance. Chalk is crushed shell, so it's in the middle of England. So that's also a bit strange, isn't it? But supposedly it's part of the Ridgeway Walk. It's called a Ridgeway Walk. It goes between here, Coombe Hill, and up to Oxford, if everybody broad or whatever's heard of Oxford. Yeah, so it's quite a long ridge. So they used to, supposedly, the Druids or pagans used to walk up there because down here was covered in oak trees. So they had to walk on top of the hills to sort of see where they were going. Well, if you go up there now, you're not going to see that many trees, and the trees that are there are small. So where have all the oak trees gone? So it's all a bit like, yeah, crazy, isn't it? I just think that there should be some bigger trees around, or older trees, somewhere. Not just the few places we've got, they should be scattered everywhere. What do you think, Angel?
Control under, like, I'm registered and stuff, but they keep the listed, aren't there, and stuff like all different trees and stuff.
Angel's back now. Angel, what do you think? I'm not saying that maybe we have this great big, like, you know, enormous, like a mile high trees, but surely some of the, I mean, even in the UK, the trees aren't that old.
I do think there has something to do with the amount of pressure that the tree can build up to move the sap, as far as dictates its height. But we also have had things that occur every couple of centuries that blow trees down, and, you know, forest fires and things like that are natural tuning of our environment.
But wouldn't we have a mixture then? Wouldn't there just be some places, not just a couple of places with great big trees? Shouldn't there be some places with big trees then? That just, that's, I mean, if we're here, they should have lasted.
Well, you've gone into forests that have been there for, you know, around you since the 1500s, we know of it for sure. And they're not, you know, the trees reach a certain height and they stop growing, probably because it takes too much effort to move the sap all the way up the tree. And that is the height that tree grows. And, you know, that's, you know, how much it can hold in its, trunk and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not a botanist, but I do believe that nature dictates certain heights. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't shed its leaves and keep growing and keep moving sap and, you know, doing other things, you know, but it stops gaining height. It may gain branches. I don't know. I'm not a botanist, but it's, you don't see I haven't seen a tree that just out of the wood, there's just one tree that's just going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. Although with all the GMO and stuff, we might eventually, but I haven't seen it yet.
Anyway, Angel, you're moving soon, aren't you? He's muted now.
Yeah, I'm working on that right now. In fact, I'm digging through piles of paperwork here.
Oh, dearie me. So when are you moving then?
About a month, two.
Okay. So you've got a bit of time to sort all this out then.
It's not a hard date. It's a moving target.
Sometimes it's good to clear things out, isn't it?
It is. I have no use for things from high school. And here, I'll share things with you. I've got things from the space shuttle. Throwing that away, little decals. I got things from. I mean, I threw out my space food the other day. I've got a whole pictures with me, and that doesn't look very full. I don't know what these are. Pictures of the Hubble telescope, how it's going to work inside the space shuttle. You know, it's all fabricated stuff. Some astronaut, I don't know his name. I was real here. I'll show you something that not a lot of people have, and since it's out in the open today, I'm going to share it. Let me turn my camera around. I've got this, which are all the patches from all the space shuttle missions, the actual patches, not pictures of them, the real bloody things for the first 36 space shuttle missions. So that's a little how much I was into this lie. So just to to give you an idea.
So what are you going to do with that then?
I have a friend who's still into the lie. I'm going to give it to him.
What else have you got then, Angel?
Oh, I've got
You bought
I've got
space.
something that in the state. Oh, I was going to say, in the state of California, I learned when I moved here, it's illegal to have a noose. So since you break on average 3 felonies every day, I decided that's going to be my first one every morning.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's just, these little things that I just, make sure that they're in my life. Because it's like if you're going to go buy on an airplane, if you bring a bomb, there's a 1 in a million chance that someone's going to bring a bomb. Nowadays, they just bring a box cutter because that works much better. But there's a 1 in a million chance that someone's going to bring a bomb, thanks to BJ Cooper. Anyway, there's a 1 in 2 million chance that 2 people are going to bring a bomb. So if you bring a bomb, you increase your odds, because then there has to be a 2 million% chance that somebody else has a bomb. I'm joking about that, by the way.
Huh. Sorry, Costa's back with us. So Costa,
Yeah,
okay. One of your prizes
Somebody
was
called me. Somebody called me, and
Oh.
I had to interrupt. It's a friend from Brazil.
That's okay, Costa. Welcome back. I was just saying, show
Yeah,
Costa
good.
your little prize, Angel, your patches.
Oh, you want to see them?
Yeah, show Costa your little prizes.
Let me bring them into the light. Give me a second.
Well, it used to be. It's not anymore. He's changed his mind now. He's going to give it away. Oh, I thought it'd be quick for him just to turn his camera around, but it's taking a bit longer now. He was just showing us because Angel's packing up to move somewhere else. So he's just going through his stuff, and he bought the lie, like he had he bought into space.
Yeah.
And now
he
obviously he knows it's. Pardon? Pardon, Costa?
Where is he moving to?
Oh my goodness. He lives in Arizona at the moment, and he's coming east. I can't remember where he said now. Oh, there you go. That was one of his prizes. He bought the 36 badges of the shuttle.
Space shuttle missions. So with all the Masonic things in them.
Yeah. The eagle, the sun, the rings of Saturn, Columbia, the dove, the star, the pentagon. Yeah, it's all symbolic. Pyramids, stars again.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a film or something.
I also, I have seen the space shuttle land. I was supposed to be for one of the space shuttle takeoffs, but I have seen at least the plane come in and touch down upon the ground. So I've seen it.
The plane land.
The plane.
Is a plane.
It's a glider.
Yeah. Yeah, it just has to glide in, doesn't it, to make it look like it's real. Which it's not.
Well, whatever it is, I've seen it touch down.
Anyway, back to this, because your favourite subject is pyramids. Just to explain again, Costa went to Silbury Hill last weekend. And Angel is again another pyramid expert. So if you've got any more questions, maybe Angel can answer you.
Well, I doubt he got to be able to climb inside of it.
No, but you believe it's all fabricated, don't you? The whole thing, like even making the stones.
Salisbury Hill?
they were
I thought it was kind of more.
No, the Giza ones.
I do believe it is primarily fabricated. And I know inside of it, it's earth and fill. It's not like a big, huge Lego set.
Only the outside.
Well, what is the containment areas within the inside and what is the shell on the outside. But when they forged their way in through it, the thieves' entrance, you're walking through landfill, you're walking through big boulders and dirt and rubble and stuff. It's not squared blocks like you're walking through like a Minecraft, where you're just like, bing, that block's gone, bing, that block's gone, bing. It wasn't like that. Otherwise, they could have just broken a block, it would have fallen apart. It was bubble, rubble, and fill. It was just fill. And they've drilled through areas and found sand and other fill. So it is not a big, huge Lego set of all squared blocks like they envision in all their theories.
Do you think that they built they actually built it as like a hill and then built the stones on top and then dug their way back in?
I think they fabricated the rocks around the outside edge and then filled it with dirt and rubble and stuff and built it up as they built it up. They may have brought in some of the larger rocks if they are real organic rock. I from everything I understand, every time they do any research on it, they never really release the answers, just like every time they do research on the correlation between vaccines and autism, and they don't ever release the answer because they don't like the answer, because the answer doesn't go along with the story. So they do the out of sight, out of mind. The answer will never come to light.
And just to explain to Kosta, Angel loves the Giza pyramids and he'd like to recreate one and see whether it works just like the way he thought it does. Whereas Kosta's probably a bit more into the UK one now.
Yeah, the one there, it's like you said, inside it's like rubble and some chalk. But I think it had to do with some crystals or something. There were stones on the outside and they were doing some kind of energy fields around the area. And I personally believe that it was like a worldwide network of the pyramids. They were like connected somehow, like a Wi-Fi we have now, the Internet of Things. But okay, it's not my personal thoughts. But what I saw, Karen, the other day, I saw an experiment they did about the flat Earth in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So they used laser beams from one side of the sea to the other to see if there was any curvature. I think it was like 40 miles or something. It was quite long. And the laser beam on the other side came exactly straight from where it started. It was like 1 meter above ground, and it went exactly on the other side. And they showed that it was a very good experiment. And I don't know if I told you last time if there was a way to project the laser beam on the moon. And the Crow 777 that's filming the moon. So if the beam shows on the moon, then that's a big proof. that is not so far away. Do you understand?
Yeah, you'd like someone to do that publicly.
Publicly, yeah, we have to speak with Crow to find someone that has a good laser beam to shoot it on the moon. And when he's filming, if it shows, it means that it's not going to be, the moon is not so far as they say. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get my point.
We've always got these ideas.
How to contact him?
Well, we did speak to him. I mean, maybe he knows people who've tried to do this. I don't know. Yeah, it would be. It's hard to know if the moon's real or whatever. I don't know if the moon's real anymore.
Yeah, maybe the beam will go through it if it's not real. But yeah, but we have to see if there is any sign or something. Because if we manage that, okay, if we see on the Crow's that what he's filming, if we see on the screen that there's something there, the beam showing, then we can shoot from another side of the planet that's supposed to be round. That time the moon should be invisible from that side. Let's say we did from Australia. So if we shoot another beam from there and it also shows on the moon, then you have another, that's a very, very strong point.
Yeah, because what's going to happen if everybody's shining up their laser beams and they're all hitting and going through the moon, but they don't see each other's laser beams? That would be interesting then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, imagine that. So you know, some places the moon appears in the daytime, in the morning. You can see in the morning, yeah? So if I'm here in the UK and Australia is supposed to be under me on the other side, and there's no way they can see the moon. But let's say, but they see it actually. They see it, yes? And they shoot this beam on the moon, and I shoot the beam from here. It means that it's not a globe anymore.
What you mean for sure? You'd be able to prove it that way?
Yeah, that's a proof.
Yeah, well, I asked NASA to stop pretending to go to space and do things like this. It'd be much better. Because that's it, see, because they've taken us to space to prove everything, when really we can do it all from here.
We can do it from here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a big thing. Yeah, the space program is something else. Yeah, it's a big deception. I don't know how they manage to keep everybody not to speak or something. Even people there don't know this stuff.
Are you still on a high from going to Silbury Hill?
Yeah, I want to go again. I want to go again when the weather is better. Because up there it was very, very cold. So definitely, I'm going again and to spend more time and to see the stones and everything.
The only lucky thing, Angel, is that this pyramid is right on the road. You can't go in the fenced off, but you can actually see it really clear. Like you can just stop the car and just walk down the side of it. So you can actually see it. You can't go anywhere near it now because it's collapsed, hasn't it? The top of it.
Yeah, the top is it's a big collapse. And I think that there's a hole as well. They drilled a hole some time ago and to see how it is.
Yeah, John was reckoning that they've done all this to make sure you can't go back inside it anymore, and they don't want you going back inside it. Do you Angel, do you believe that Silbury Hill links up with the pyramids in Giza? Like it's all part of, you know, they were all resonating together somehow.
From what I understand of what I know of Silbury Hill, yeah, the part that went down underneath it and came back up on the other side, and then kind of a hollow column in the center. I think it was allowing for condensation, the way that the pools are segregated, and I'm not trying to read into it. I would just like to see it put back in its proper environment and see what it does, because I know that when you're in the middle of a dry area, you can use a plastic bag, dig a hole about 1.5 feet deep, put a plastic bag along the bottom liner, and then stretch one across the top of it. And condensation will happen on the inside of that plastic bag and drip down. Nature does that all by itself. So I think nature would do things by itself. And we, since we're not putting it in the right environment, we come up with theories instead of letting nature tell us what it does. But I think it would.
It's even hard to work it all out because so many of them have been destroyed.
Well, this is true, but you have pieces and parts of them, and you know a good bit about what the original configuration was. You know, at least from what John has said and this gentleman said, that it didn't actually go all the way through to the top. It was drilled through to the top over time, but it wasn't that way when it was found. So you had a center column in the center of a mound that went down to a pool that went below ground level and was accessible, but was separate from the pools on either side of it. That's what I see, and I think it would allow for condensation, and that water would be cleaner. It also may do something with electricity, but because anytime there's condensation, there's movement of electrons, and if you have a big enough volume of that, you are talking electricity. But did they utilize it? Did they even know it? Again, I point back to the 1800s. The Giza pyramids were generating electricity every day. It was annoying. People would climb up there. They'd have sparks coming off their fingertips. They could do Leyden jar experiments, got frizzy hair. What did they do? They put a wooden structure on the top to alleviate the nasty buildup of static electricity. Not say, oh my God, these people built a structure that generates static electricity. They said, how do we get rid of this annoying buildup of static electricity? We're not looking at what it does. We're coming up with ideas of what it could do instead of following the system. I think if put in its right environment, it would do something. That's where experimentation comes in. Real experimentation, not mathematical theory experimentation, because nature follows rules. It doesn't follow logic.
Do you think we know what we're playing with? Just say if the water came back and from the Nile and went up to the pyramids, what would happen then? Do we know what we're playing with?
It would raise the water table. In fact, ironically enough, I just came across pictures from the 1800s of when the water did come up to the surface of the Sphinx, prior to when they put the Aswan Dam and other dams in there, which now control the Nile River. Prior to that, the Nile River would flood, and the river would come up to that elevation. And really all that would do is, A, prove that water was in the area and could be gotten to the area. So, like, how would they get all that water there? Well, they catch it while it's flooding one year, and then they utilize it. And the other thing, it shows that it is conceivably possible if the water was there, and they utilize it being there.
I was just wondering what it would do to the pyramids with the water back.
Well, without repairing much of the work that we have damaged from it, and adding some external pieces that would contain the water to it, they would start making sparks at minimum, or like I said, a pretty waterfall.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Costa?
What to say now? The pyramid is not only, as we see it, just stones and that. I think there's something more like consciousness behind it. It has to do with energies and things that have to do with the human and the earth. The earth has a conscience itself. It's our mother. It's not just a piece of land. So I don't know. I'm trying to see it like on a consciousness level. And I think now that all this is shut down, so there's a way to make it work again. Then yeah, there's going to be big changes.
Just to add, by the way, that our Robert Kidner from Mexico, who's into pyramids and has got some very close to him, he said some of the pyramids did not give out very good energies, and they had gargoyles and things on. You know, he felt like people had died there. Just the way this certain pyramids are, and the other pyramids weren't like that.
Yeah, I think in Mexico they were doing sacrifices on the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I get this positive side like you, Costa, where, you know, negative ions in the ground, all these energies they were making, they could have made like heaven on earth, everybody would have. And then the other part is this quite sinister side with all this energy they were making. Maybe they've been, well, I don't know, but people reckon that the pyramids emit up and there's all this stuff happening, you know, like maybe not good, and the power, and you know, maybe they help cause all the electrical arkings that we suffered. I don't know. We just don't know, do we? I'm not sure, but obviously Angel has how he feels that they are. But they were still making electricity.
Well, I don't speak for all of the structures that are classified as pyramids on the surface of the planet. I only focus on the on a few of them, and honestly, I like to keep my focus to the Giza because it's the one that's most documented. So I'm not saying that other structures don't do other things, but it is quite evident that the large structure that we call the Great Giza Pyramid, if they were to take that wooden 4-post antenna off the top of it that is there today, in a matter of weeks or even could be days, that the structure would generate. And it doesn't really generate, it catches it like if you put an antenna in the, you know, on the top of your roof, it doesn't generate the electronic waves, it catches them. You know, they're out there. Static electricity is out there. It catches it. It harnesses it. It grabs it. So it's kind of like what Tesla said. The energy is there. You just have to catch it and utilize it. You know, it's around us all over the place in great abundance. So
Yeah, we're breathing it in, and the chemtrails, but we're breathing in all that free energy.
Well, that's a little bit different. I'm referring to the structure.
Yeah,
and what I'm saying is that structure today, if somebody were to take that 4-post antenna off the top within a short period of time, it would have a static electric bubble around it. Just like if you were to rub a balloon on your head, it will generate a static electric bubble around it. That's just physical science. It will happen. Now, the rest of the guts of it aren't going to magically come to power because the rest of it isn't in function. There's no water in the area. There's no retaining wall around it. I mean, all the other pieces have been damaged. But if they were all put back into place, it's kind of like if I was looking at one of those sand things you have at the beach where you put the water in the top and it makes a thing spin and then it rolls down and it hits a thing and it does something else. And, you know, if you see the majority of it and pieces of it are missing, you just say, well, this piece goes here and this piece goes there, boom, done. I'm not saying drill holes here, add things there. No, because I want to reverse engineer the structure, not re-engineer the structure. And it would come to life, and they control the narrative by making you think of it as a tomb. And as long as you're thinking of it as a tomb, you're never looking at it as a machine. They don't really document the other structures and how they fit together and how they all are one machine. Other than, you know, in the past year, no one ever told me, hey, these Nazca lines that they show you a monkey and they show you a squirrel and they show you a spider, they don't show you that it's actually the blueprints of the Giza pyramid also. They don't take the time. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's some tomb built by a pharaoh. Because did that pharaoh have any control of what was happening on the Nazca lines over on another continent? No. It doesn't fit the narrative. That's why my focus is accepting what is and not really theorize about how it came to be.
Yeah, because you still want to make a pyramid, don't you, and see it work?
Well, I do, because that will document. If I was to show you a windmill and say, this is a windmill, and you say, but it's not doing anything. Well, that's because there's no wind. Okay, well, here, let me build it, and now let's turn it on, and poof, now we have, you know, it's doing something. Now you believe me. You know, that's what you have to, if I build one and show that that structure, exactly as it's configured, no guesswork involved, does work, then it, you know, it takes the guesswork out of it. The Giza antiquities are not going to let me say, hey, let's re-pour cement here where you guys broke through it and redo this and redo that and redo that. No, ain't going to happen. But I can build a scale structure and show that it does work. Other people have built scale structures, but they add trick doors and valves and knobs and pieces that aren't evident within the structure. The structure doesn't need help. It just needs to be repaired.
So what do you think these things would have been like for the Egyptians then? They've got much more out of them than us.
Eyesores in their backyard.
They are very different, aren't they, really, to anything else?
It's a big thing in the middle of a field that I wish I could be farming, but they got this big pile of rocks there, and well, the whole area around it's full of rocks, so I can't garden here, and there's not a whole lot of water. Although there was technically water at the time, because they hadn't built the Aswan Dam yet, so they still couldn't farm it.
I mean, I don't know if Kosta's found this out, but they did the same thing over Avebury. They said that there was like, you can see one row of stones with Avebury now, but there was two, and the other, there was like another, well, they called them, they've got moats round them. They'll tell you it has a moat round it, but I don't think that's what it is. It's an electrical arcing. But there was another one with all these stones on. So it looked like, supposedly, the ovaries of a woman. That's what it was. But one of them's gone now, because supposedly the reason that Avebury's there, the houses are there, is all the houses now are built from all the other stones from the other circle.
Okay.
And that didn't happen yesterday. That happened 200, 300, 400, how many hundred years ago? However old those houses are. They're not like made yesterday. They're made hundreds of years ago. It's a bit of a shame we couldn't space travel, isn't it, really, and go back and see what all this stuff really was. But then nobody would believe you, I suppose, would they? I went back. I know what the pyramids are there for. They're mad. Anyway, can I just say, we've been going for about 3 hours now, and 3 hours is a good time on a hangout to end a hangout. Is there anything anybody else wants to say? Anything that you're looking into, Angel? because I never realised what Angel told me, that the pyramids in Giza are on different levels, and that they line up together inside but not outside.
And that all has to do with the elevation of how water finds its equal.
Yeah. But, you know, thank you for that. And you have some really interesting videos on your channel, Angel.
I try to.
Yeah. Many blackboard videos where he's writing it down and showing you. Kosta, do you want to say anything else? Because we have been going for 3 hours now. Kosta's on mute. Lev, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm fine. I'm not ready to work for everything.
Yeah, we've talked about quite a lot, haven't we, tonight, with pyramids and realization.
Yeah, it's been good.
I don't know whether Patricia's there, because sometimes she says she can't get to the microphone quick.
I'm here.
Patricia?
I'm here. You not hear me?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the talk tonight, realization and pyramids?
Well, my realization is that I don't know anything, about everything, and that I've just got to learn that I've got to live in my own little bubble in a way, because I weren't around when the Egyptians were around. I weren't around when dinosaurs. Joking. You know, I don't know these things, and I can go around in circles guessing at what things are and what they are, and I've just got to try and live my life the best I can, travel if I can. You know, that's my realization.
Yeah, because it's usually something most days that get you don't know, and you think, oh, I thought I knew things, but I don't know anything at all. Thanks for that, Patricia. Kosta, you're back now. Do you want to say anything? Kosta. Seem to can't get through to Kosta. Anyway, Angel, anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, I'm good.
Oh, good. Kosta, are you there? I saw you unmute yourself, Kosta. No, he's not unmuting. I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody that came on the panel. Thank you to John Cowie, to Astral, to Kosta, to Patricia, to Lev, and to Angel. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, oh, he says he's got a signal failure. Tomorrow we're back with Russian vids. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody, and thank you so much. We're back tomorrow. Big flat earth hugs to everyone.
See you later.
Good night.
Love you all.
Love you all.